We'll resume. So we've introduced district staff and the majority of the ABC. We have 2 members to go. Ms. Titcomb. Nellie, I thought you were here. I guess not. And I know Mr. Wallace was unable to attend. So that covers it for introductions. Good to see everybody. Excuse me?
I don't think he's
Oh, you are there.
I'm here.
I called your name. I didn't hear anything. Did you just
I was
enter?
trying to unmute. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Charmaine. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Charmaine Poster.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties, but Charmaine Postal, Boca Raton, Florida. And I don't know what else you guys introduce yourself, but glad to be here. I'm a little under the weather, but I'll make it through.
And who was your appointer?
I am appointed by Palm Beach County Council, PTA. We're named.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, and then in regards to announcements, the only announcement I would like to read out is yesterday the school board approved revised policy 5.012, which is the ABC policy. That's the web link to that revised policy was sent to all the ABC members prior to this meeting, and part of that approved policy revision now allows us to hold these fully virtual ABC meetings. So that was approved yesterday and is now in effect. We will now move to approval of the January 17th, 2019. I know
there's a hand. Andrew has a hand up.
Oh, didn't see that. Go ahead, Andrew.
I'm sorry, Jason. We're good to go.
Okay, so we're successfully streaming.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And Mr.
All right, thank you for your help.
The link as well.
Great, we appreciate your assistance. All right, approval of the minutes. So we need approval of the January 17th, 2019 minutes, which were sent to you. All in favor of approving the January 17th, 2019 minutes, please indicate as such.
You need a motion.
I move we approve the minutes. Scott Singer.
Second.
And I second that, Jason.
Who is the second?
That was me, Frank Hayden, or whoever.
Okay. All right. Those in favor? Show of hands.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes are unanimously approved. Now we move on to election of the ABC chair. Do I hear a motion for election of the ABC chairperson?
This is Virginia. This is Virginia. I nominate Cynthia Becton.
Second.
All right, so that's a motion by Virginia Ferris, second by, is that Frank Hayden? Correct?
Yes, that was me, Jason. Yes.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second to elect Cynthia Becton as chairperson of the Advisory Boundary Committee for the 22-23 boundary cycle. All in favor, please raise your hands.
I
Did
didn't
she
do that.
accept it?
She doesn't have a choice.
She
wouldn't do that to us.
That's a good question. All right, all opposed. So hands, remove the hands, please, for those in favor, and then any opposed?
Yvette, remove your hand. Unless you're opposing.
Okay, I'm seeing and hearing none. So seeing none, the motion is carried, and congratulations.
Thank you for
Once again,
serving
Madam
again,
Chair.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Nice.
So Cynthia, at this point, the floor is yours for the vice chair.
Thank you so much. It's been interesting. Uh,
Sorry.
The floor is open for nominations for the position of vice chair.
Miss Cynthia, I would like to nominate Virginia if she would so kind to help us out for this year.
A second.
Virginia Ferris has been nominated with the second. Carla moves and Roseanne seconds. Anything? Oh, we're ready to vote. All in favor of that nomination, would you please raise your hand?
I don't. Did my hand get raised? I can't tell.
Okay. Patrick, are we okay? Are you ready for us to lower our hands?
Just a second, and I don't see any hands up for. If you could use a little tool, is there anybody opposed to the vote?
Okay. Okay, why don't we just lower our hands? Anyone opposed, please raise your hand. Now, do you see any opposers?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Okay, with that, Virginia has been shanghaied, whatever, to vice chair. And for those of you who may be new to the committee, want you to know that in addition to several of her other skills, Virginia is a parliamentarian. So we actually have a to-be in her appointment.
Thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you. With that, Jason, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. All right. Before we get into the staff presentation, I'd like to first invite Principal Moldovan to provide some updates and information regarding new elementary school O5C. Mr. Moldovan is a highly regarded and extremely accomplished school leader. He's been the longtime principal of Verde Elementary, now known as Verde K-8, and he will be the principal of this fabulous new state-of-the-art elementary school in Boca Raton. So Principal Moldovan, if the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. I'm honored and excited to serve as the newly appointed principal of O5C. Last month, I was appointed by the superintendent. I will be moving to my new role after 4 more days, where I've served 7.5 years as the principal of Verde K-8. During that time, I've seen academic achievement grow at Verde K-8. I've helped oversee the entire building of our new $29 million campus. And I'm just very excited to move to this new position. I'm excited that our new school will open in August of 22. We will have a full-time gifted program. We're working on making sure that we have the newest and most innovative technology within the school district of Palm Beach County. And I'm looking to provide a world-class education for the students that attend our new school. There has been a website set up for any questions or any information that you want to see about our new school. That can be found on the school district website. In January, I begin the hiring of our entire staff, first starting with our instructional staff. I'm looking to hire a diverse group of individuals who will be the catalyst for ensuring a positive academic and social experience for the new students of O5C. In addition, once the boundaries are finalized, I look forward to convening a parent community leadership committee with representatives of all schools that will be feeding into O5C, so that I can listen to the rich histories of the past schools that the children have attended and look to ensure to intertwine those rich histories into creating the new history of O5C. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Moldovan. Appreciate it. All right, now for the staff presentation. In regards to some of the documentation sent to you, I'll briefly run through that. First is the superintendent's guidance letter to the ABC, which should appear on the screen. You see, is the letter up? Just making sure. Okay, I'll just briefly run through that. I'm sure everyone has reviewed the documentation. Real quick, as we're no longer operating under the school concurrency interlocal agreement, provides guidance on the type of classroom units which we consider as part of a school's capacity. There's no need to provide extensive relief for Whispering Pines Elementary as we are planning other strategies. Given that the city of Boca Raton generously donated the new school site, requesting that we don't consider proposals shifting students out of the Boca Raton area. And finally, despite the new school's proximity to full choice Don Estridge High-Tech Middle, students attending O5C will not have any preference to attend Don Estridge. So that was the guidance letter from the superintendent. And next, I want to go briefly through this important analysis regarding Calusa Elementary.
Jason?
Yes.
Before you do, the map that you sent us does not show us where Boca Town boundaries end.
Okay.
So as you do this study, could you point that out?
Sure.
As you go through it?
That also, I think it's also the city and the unincorporated areas is the.
So he doesn't mean just the city.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. Not just the city. I think it's also portions of unincorporated Boca Raton, which some of those schools serve.
Okay.
So not just the municipal boundaries of the city, but also some of the areas of unincorporated.
Okay. It wasn't clear that way.
Yes. Yeah, it states being moved to schools outside the Boca Raton area. So I think that's, the unincorporated and municipal boundaries of the city.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, so next is this analysis. Calusa, we were here 5 years ago to, some of you recall, to relieve Calusa Elementary, which has been an over-enrolled school for a number of years, 7-8 years. This is the main school who O5C will end up relieving. So I want to run through these bullet points. Based on conversations with the Calusa principal and the South Regional Office, we are attempting to reduce Calusa's enrollment in the low to mid 900 range, allowing the school to efficiently operate while accommodating future growth. Calusa was originally built for a student body of around 750 students. Additional capacity was added through the years to include 20 modular classrooms, 11 concretables, and 3 wooden units, which equates to 34 total additional detached units aside from the permanent building. We actually ran an analysis just to see if any other elementary, middle, and high schools have that many modulars, concretables, wooden units on their campus. No elementary schools, no high schools, and 4 middle schools have more those type of units on their campus. So that's a lot of units in that, mainly the school's green space for an elementary school. So we've got 34 total modulars, concretables, wooden units, but the key thing, core capacity was never increased. As stated above, the principal and regional office believe that the school can successfully function with enrollment in the low to mid 900 range. For comparison, the school currently enrolls 1,255 students. In comparison, Whispering Pines, for example, has had a core expansion and has space for additional modular units. O5C, new school O5C, was designed for approximately 1,000 students and has space for additional classrooms on its campus if need be. Whereas Calusa has been over maximized in regards to additional classroom space outside the permanent building. The state calculated capacity, which includes modulars, concretables, and wooden relocatables, as I previously mentioned, is used as the baseline, but is not the only consideration when determining a school's optimal enrollment. And here are some of the challenges the school has faced when it's above that ideal range. They must use non-traditional classroom space to meet needs. They must float teachers and specials. I believe all their specials are currently being floated. They don't have science lab, computer lab, music, guidance. Have to reduce programs due to lack of instructional space, difficulty accommodating the amount of additional traffic above and beyond the school's original design. This forces the school drop-off line to open a half hour earlier, with drop-off often ending after 8:05, causing tardies, misinstruction, and disrupts instructional staff schedules. jeopardizes the school's ability to meet CSR requirements. Use of non-traditional office space for staff jeopardizes the school's ability to schedule and conduct quality recess time, jeopardizes the school's ability to conduct student dismissal from inside the school, exposing students and staff to inclement weather, storage challenges, limits the available space for use by after-school programming, and necessitates the use of all 3 wooden units, which we would really like to remove from that campus as soon as possible. So that was the analysis on Calusa Elementary, and again, based on consultations with the South Regional Office leadership and the principal, we felt in consultation that 900 range was an optimal enrollment for the school moving forward. Okay, next, I'll move on to the presentation of the study. Let's see if we can just access it from here. How about I'll just pull up the PDF, it'll be quicker here. Let me. Oh, just as I was doing it, it just decides to come up. All right. Everybody see the map?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sure you all have reviewed the map.
Jason?
Yes.
Sorry, Dr. Samora here. Would you please, on the upper left-hand corner, eliminate that thumbnail strip so that can expand your screen even more? We'll be able to see it in better detail if you could get rid of that left column. Thank you.
Sure. Better?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the proposal shifts students from loads O5C with students from 3 different attendance zones. The majority coming from Calusa Elementary. O5C is the green dot. The green outline is the proposed new elementary O5C attendance zone. So loads the school with students from Calusa, second most students coming from 2 SACs from Verde. And as we refer to SACs, those are study area codes. Those are geographic areas usually divided by, geographic building blocks, so to speak, that every school attendance zone is comprised of. Usually the boundaries of these are roads, canals, railroad tracks, large easements, things of that nature typically, but they're geographic building blocks, and each SAC, contains specific numbers of students. So majority of students from Calusa, and then we've got 1 SAC from J.C. Mitchell and 2 SACs from Verde. In association with this move, we've got 1 additional SAC moving from Verde K8 to Addison Meisner K8, about 20 students. We've got SAC 335 proposed to move from Addison Meisner K8 to J.C. Mitchell K8. For those of you in the, some of these SACs, like 335, that was actually moved that 5 years ago when we had no choice. We didn't have any other options but to initiate attendance zone changes to relieve Calusa. We didn't have a new school. We weren't able to place mods on the campus. So we had to initiate that hard boundary change. And at the time, Addison Meisner was losing around 15, 20, 25 students a year. There was space at the school. So we moved SAC 335 from JC to Addison Meisner. And now this proposal, Addison Meisner modernized 1 year, their enrollment jumped about 100 students K5. So they still, now they're K6. Next year, they still need to roll in the 7th and 8th. And their in-zone enrollment is forecast grow. So with J.C. Mitchell having the additional space, we're proposing shifting SAC 335 to J.C. Mitchell. Now, everyone impacted by that boundary change 5 years ago, that last student would be a current fourth grader. And I'd like to also state within this proposal, all current fourth graders and their siblings, current siblings attending any of these schools would have the choice to remain. Typically, we've allowed that without transportation. So any fourth grader and their current siblings, no matter what grade, K through 3, would have the option to remain at their current schools. So it's about 100 students proposed to move from Addison to J.C. Mitchell. It's about 80 students from J.C. Mitchell to O5C. And then for Whispering Pines, this was another area we moved from Colusa to Whispering Pines during that change 5 years ago. This is Boca West, large geographically, but not many students, about 25 students in Boca West. A lot of multifamily housing. So we're proposing moving that. So Whispering Pines would no longer be any SACs east of Florida's Turnpike. Plus, with their growth, any little bit will help as we, seek out those solutions to further reduce their enrollment or provide capacity to Whispering Pines. So that's the map. And now the important aspect is also the projections and the projected enrollment. What happens if we don't do anything, and then projected enrollment. So we'll start with Addison Meisner. As they're right now K6, they're moving to K7 and K8. If we don't do anything, you see they breach 100% projected by 23-24, 104%, 24-25, 103%. With the change, Addison Meisner next year is 89%, 98%, and then the third year, 97%. Colusa, 113%, 118%, 125%. Again, this is counting all those concretables. With the change down to that sort of optimal number of in the low mid 900s, 904, 906, 952. So the 78, 82%, that includes those 34 mods, concretables, and portables, which just the permanent building and the mods alone is about 968. So we're just seeking to try to fill them just around their permanent building and their 20 mods. So those concretables, they can have an art room, they can have science lab, they can have a computer lab, they can have music, they can have guidance, they can have specials in those dedicated classrooms. They can have ESE pullouts again. These concretables perhaps can accommodate future growth. So it's providing the school breathing room, which they haven't had for a long time. So they have some of this extra space. So they're not using every last wooden, even the 3 wooden portables they're using for classrooms, and no dedicated specials. So O5C with this proposal, 77%, that's assuming, we're allowing the fourth graders and their siblings to remain. So we're assuming most fourth graders will choose to remain. We looked at new school openings in the past and sort of gauge what a 5th grade class would look like. So we did add some students to 5th grade. So we're looking at 77% first year O5C, increase to 92%, and then third year 96%, 753, 899, 937. And remember, this school was built for 1,000 students. The core, the cafeteria, the media center, the property, the front office, the media, the hallways, built for 1,000 students. Colusa was built for 750. So their core is very stressed with these high enrollment numbers in regards to Colusa. J.C. Mitchell, 81%, 83%, 85%, no change with the proposal, 82, 85, 88. J.C. Mitchell, we typically try to keep in a utilization a little under 100 as they are an ESE cluster, and they do house ESE students. So we try to provide them extra space for those ESE students. Verde, without any change, this is another school that's been growing rapidly each year, as Mr. Moldovan can attest to. Each year it just seems it was 30, 40, plus 30, 40, 50. So without a change, and they're moving to their full K8 next year, 108%, 112%, 113%. With the change, Verde's at 93%, 93%, projected 94%. with an enrollment of 1270, 1268, and 1276. And finally, Whispering Pines, which I mentioned, in the superintendent's letter, we are going to seek other solutions to relieve the school, but there's a lot of new development in their zone. Bridges, 7 Bridges, Boca Bridges, and Lotus. These are all a large-scale GL homes development within their zone, which is the catalyst for their growth. If you recall, 5 years ago, we actually moved the SAC from Whispering Pines to Sunrise Park, anticipating all this growth in the school. So, hindsight, I'm glad we did that. But 102, 105, 108, with the change, which is a small number of students, about 25, next year 100, 103, and then the third year 105. But again, we will be looking at a alternative solution for Whispering Pines. And those are the numbers. Next page was the school information. Feeder patterns, really no change aside from Calusa, which goes from a split. Now, per policy, one of the criteria is we try to maintain, no more than 2 to 4 feeders from elementary to middle. So, all these schools, it's either Calusa actually goes from 2 to 1, but all the remaining schools remain split between 2 middle schools. O5C, the new school O5C, will be 79% of students matriculating to Omni and 21% to Boca Raton Middle. And the other schools remain at their same split levels. And then these are the drive distances for most SACs. That was another secondary criteria in the policy, that we try to reduce travel distance for most of these SACs. We were able to do that for a few, especially in the northeastern Calusa zone. They currently have a bus to Calusa. It's a little bit further, adding a mile for one SAC and 0.5 for most of these SACs. It's close to 2 miles less distance to O5C than Calusa. And then the Verde to Addison SAC, that's about a mile less. And then Verde to O5C is a little bit, about 9/10 and 3/10 for the 2 SACs, a little further to O5C. This is the 2-mile walk zone. It's got a lot of colors in it, just kind of highlights the walk zones for each school. And then, we've got a list showing all the developments impacted, and then the attending and residing students per SAC. And then as we go further down, the aerials of the exact borders of the SACs, or the portions of the existing zones proposed to change. So that covers the presentation.
I know the agenda calls for the public comments, but before we go to public comments, is there any questions from the committee? I know the committee discussion will be later, but there might be a question. Yes, Carla.
Carla, you're muted.
By now, you'd think I'd have that down pat, right? Jason, you alluded to how the district leaves space for our ESE programming. And when the principal spoke earlier, he did mention gifted programming, which I understand because I know the district is going with all elementary schools having a gifted program. Do we know what ESE programming will be at that school? And is that included in our projected numbers for O5C?
Now, Mr. Moldavon, do you want to answer the gifted piece, or the ESE piece?
Well, we know that we will be a full-time gifted center, as you said, Ms. Donaldson, but we are still not at the point of where we will know with what programming, in addition to that, will be in place. That'll be up to the South Regional Office to work with the school district to determine that. That has not yet been determined.
Okay.
So Carla, our projections do assume the gifted, the O5C housing gifted, but yeah, it doesn't assume any other additional ESE programs that may be in place, perhaps at a later date.
Okay, I can do some more research. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Charmaine?
Thank you. Just wanted to, you kind of went really quickly with that J.C. Mitchell point. I think it was, if you go back to your map, Jason, SAC, oh gosh, I don't know.
335.
335. So the question I had is, why are we ridding one SAC to add another SAC? So we're getting rid of the 80 student SAC. I believe it was 80 students up top. And then we're going to bring in from Addison Meisner about 100 students to JC Mitchell. What was the reasoning behind that when JC Mitchell is already at low capacity?
Well, we're moving that 335 contains about 100 students.
Okay.
The 342A we're projecting from Verde to Addison is only about 20 students. So it's a net relief of 80 students. So Addison Meisner, so provides a little extra relief for Verde, which really needed all the relief it could afford. So, and with 342A, it's a little bit closer to, it's a mile closer to Addison Meisner. And 335, it's really the numbers. Addison needed relief of around 100 students. I mean, they grew 100 students in a year. So
that's up top. 80, Jason, the one that we're removing from, the one we're removing from JC Mitchell to go to 05C.
Right, that's 315. That's right here. You can see
315. Why are we shifting that 315?
Well,
what was the purpose?
Yeah, we're loading a new school. So we're looking at areas where we could load a new school. And, this was a big sort of puzzle piece. So we needed to load 05C. So that SAC had sufficient students to load 05C. And at the same time, we needed to relieve Addison Meisner, or they were going to breach 100%. So there was about 100 students in 335 and about 80 students in 315. So it was almost a swap. So we're adding students to JC Mitchell, and then we're shifting students out. So JC Mitchell as a net gain will gain about 20 students from this proposal. So we needed to load 05C with sufficient students, and that SAC provided, along with providing a contiguous attendance zone for 05C, and looking to relieve Addison Meisner. So there were the number of students in 315 and the number of students we were going to move to JC Mitchell ended up being about a plus 20 for JC Mitchell.
Thank you. I will serve any additional questions for later in discussion time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Not being able to see everyone on the screen. Do you see another hand? I don't see one.
Madam Chair, I'm Scott Singer, and yes, my hand is raised.
Go ahead. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much. First, some procedural questions, I guess, because I'm getting some text from some parents who I think want to participate. I think they're watching on the YouTube channel, Madam Chair and staff. Is that the appropriate channel where they voice their comments, or they have to sign in a separate way to Zoom to be heard audibly?
I'll address that if that's okay.
Please, Mr. Link.
Yeah, so we provided a registration link for parents to speak at the meeting. There was a separate just to watch Zoom link, just watch, not speak. And then there was a separate Zoom registration link that was provided in the parent link call. It's been posted to the website, emailed to the parents. So there were two separate links, one to participate, and then there was a YouTube link just to watch. So we did have a number of parents sign up to speak.
All right. Thank you. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to get it out there because I know at least there's one YouTube viewer, and I thought she should hear that. A lot of parents in Boca Raton, I think, are going to be joining in, obviously, and they've raised a number of concerns to us. I'll let them speak, but I wanted to pose some questions because I think it was a common theme, and I thought it would help to start it now so that everyone didn't feel that they had to wait the entire time just to hear the point made. I can make it on their behalf. There's a concern about the members of 324. A lot of the communities there, Mill Pond and Timber Creek. It's part of the St. Andrews Boulevard corridor. You see SACs 318 and 313 there, and there are about 8 different communities there. A lot of them have expressed concern about that. Those are the only two, even though they're the closest, being pulled over to 05C. And question is, what can be done to kind of to keep that community, the St. Andrews, I guess, neighborhoods more together, whether they're Calusa or having more go over to 05C. From my conversations with you, Mr. Link, I understand that, that, and with Chair Barbieri, there's a number, it's hard to make those numbers work. But I wanted to at least mention that because it's a common refrain that's come up from those neighbors. I'll just post two other things too. 296C, which is the north, it's just above where the map is visible right now. Northwest corner, if you scroll up, that's north of Linton, unincorporated Delray. I didn't know if keeping that in Calusa as opposed to moving it to Whispering Pines helps reshuffle anything, but I thought it bared consideration. There will be a question, I think, on what the walk zone really meant. I think some parents didn't necessarily get all that. And then I also wanted to mention the Ms. Postel's question. 315 and 335, they do seem to be similar in size. I didn't know if the district had given any consideration to keeping 315 where it was and moving 335 over to 05C. I see it is a greater distance and does require Glades Road, but I thought I would throw that out. And I've asked enough questions. I'll let the other members speak and the residents speak too. Thank you.
Right, so I'll start with the last. So you can see this is the J.C. Mitchell is located right here. That's the blue school location. So 335, it's not, we'd have to include other SAC areas to provide a contiguous zone to 05C. And that was the issue. It's just, it wasn't contiguous to the 05C zone based on the numbers. And it's not that far in itself from J.C. Mitchell. So SAC 315 farther away. I mean, we can look at the drive distances. So 335, it's about 1.5 miles to Addison Miser. It reduces about 0.3 miles on average. I mean, we went at the center of the SAC where the students reside. And J.C. Mitchell, it's about 3, adds about 0.5 mile. But we look at, it's where the students reside. And we look at where those students are living and residing in order to make those shifts. We try to create contiguous zones. So if we've got, like here, you can see there are SACs in between. There was too many students then to just shift all over to 05C, where 315 was already contiguous to the area. It's right south of another, one of the Calusa SACs we're proposing to move. So it created this, contiguous attendance zone. And the key part though, it's, the sufficient number of students within those SACs. So that was the determining factor, just the number of students within those SACs and partly, due to the geography. In terms of SAC 296C, we want to avoid shifting any additional students into Whispering Pines just due to their projected utilization. They've got more growth coming due to bridges, 7 bridges, Boca Bridges, and Lotus. 2 of them, 7 bridges and bridges are pretty much finished, but Lotus and Boca Bridges, there's still some homes to come and they're generating a lot of kids. So if anything, we want to look to relieve Whispering Pines either via additional classrooms or some programmatic shifts or whatnot. But we want to avoid adding any additional students to Whispering Pines because they've just got growth going with this new development. And then SAC 324, which the line is St. Andrews Boulevard. Let me go back to the Calusa enrollment analysis. That addresses some of that. So SAC 324 on average is about 3.2 miles to Calusa, which requires transportation. The proposed change would result in a travel distance of about 1 mile to 05C. So it's about, a little over 2 miles less distance from 324. And that's one of the secondary criteria in the policy. So this, our transportation department would examine that if there was a hazardous walk condition, but it's a possibility it could eliminate the need for bus transportation in that area. Not moving SAC 324 to 05C now creates a zone where the majority of students attending 05C will be traveling further to school than if a change did not take place. This would result in having to move additional northern SACs in Calusa. So it's a large SAC. It's one of the larger SACs we're moving to 05C. So if that large SAC remained in Calusa, we're gonna have to find other SACs. We're gonna have to find other kids to move. And it's likely gonna come from the northern Calusa zone. And I can show you. So SAC 324, there's 134 students attending Calusa, 175 K5 reside, 134 attend Calusa. That's a lot of students. So if we leave them in Calusa, that's putting Calusa, over that low to mid 900s figure. And, we're going to have to find, and it's 134 kids out of O5C. So we're going to have to find some sort of replacement SAC. As I mentioned, if all of SAC 324 were to remain at Calusa, the following would be the projected enrollment utilization at Calusa for the next 3 years. So they'd be at 1,014, 1,040, and 1,086. Already that third year at 93% of all that available capacity, including the concretables. That's well over the 900 students requested by the principal and regional superintendent, even in the first year. O5C would be at 643, 765, that's 79%, 66% final year, 803 students, 83%, providing a student population during the first 2 years that is too low to develop strong programs at a new school. So as I mentioned, we would have to find additional students. If they were to remain, we're gonna have to look for other areas to move. Also with SAC 324, I mentioned the drive distance. One of the other secondary criteria in policy states that the dividing of subdivisions should be avoided. So, St. Andrews Boulevard, it's a 4-lane thoroughfare. It's, about 4.5 miles stretching from Yamato Road to Palmetto Park. On either side, it's individual subdivisions on either side of the road, including some businesses, shopping plazas. I know the Boca Town Square Mall is on one side of the road. So per policy, we are to avoid as best as possible splitting subdivisions. So these individual subdivisions, Timber Creek, Mill Pond, et cetera, we are not splitting those subdivisions. They are remaining intact. So we're using St. Andrews, which is a 4-lane, pretty substantial thoroughfare, and using that as a divider. And it's predicated on the numbers. I mean, we need to look at the number one criterion policy, is we must attempt to achieve optimal enrollment and utilization. It's capacity enrollment. That's what we must follow. That's number one. And some of these secondary criteria, sometimes we can't meet them if we fail to meet that number one criteria of achieving optimal enrollment and utilization and looking at the school's capacity. So, based on both of these SACs, 318 and 324, either side, there are a lot of students in these SACs. So, if it's not these areas, we would have to then look at new areas to relieve Calusa and or, load O5C with. So that was the determining factor, is using St. Andrews as the divider. And, we ensured we didn't split those individual subdivisions on, either side of St. Andrews, that they remain intact. Aside from the distance, this is a very close, it's a mile away from the school where currently they do receive a bus to Calusa. So it is, it's you can see on the map, there's Calusa and O5C. It's just Potomac Road, Potomac, and then across Military. So it's
Okay, there was a question from Kathy. I saw Carla, and then I saw Charmaine. And then I'm going to ask the committee to please allow us to go to public comment. Want to ask you something. Oh, and Karen also has her hand raised for a question so that we can go to public comment. Want to suggest to you that when we finish with these questions, I'll be asking you if our direction as it relates to public comment is to allow 2 minutes because we have 25 speakers. Kathy?
Yeah, I had a question about the transportation impact, and I have a feeling that'll come out in some of the public comments. So I don't know that we need to discuss it now, but I just wanted to understand better. I think there were some concerns about folks that are currently getting a bus that wouldn't get a bus, and that was going to be problematic for them because maybe it was a little bit, even though within a walking distance, not necessarily safe for somebody in kindergarten or first grade to walk over a mile. So I didn't know how big of an impact that was, if that was a pretty minor impact or if that was something that we need to also look at.
Isn't there someone on from transportation?
And Kathy, yeah, and I'm assuming that was the SAC 324 that was raised, although they're closer, crossing military, whatnot, would transportation be provided? We did read some of those emails. So, and we've got Mr. Searchwell and Mr. Nyman to address transportation.
Yes, the general guidelines given by the state is that if the student reside less than 2 miles from the school, transportation would not be provided unless it's designated a hazardous walking.
Daniel, I'm in the Meisner Center walking south toward the main building. What's the easiest way to get to the site?
So if it's determined to be a hazard, then we would transport. Another way of mitigating that is to have crossing guards to get the students across the busy roads. And if that we have the crossing guards in place, then
Gray suit, and I'm standing by the door that's on the south side.
Mayor Singer.
We have two people speaking at once.
Yeah, Mayor Singer, you're if you wouldn't mind muting, please. Thank you so much.
My apologies. My apologies.
That's okay.
That's right.
It's virtual. It happens. It's okay.
Yes,
Sorry,
so as I was saying, that's all right. As I was saying, that the general guidelines we have is anything under 2 miles, the student would not be transported, should not be transported unless the area is designated as a hazardous walk zone. And to mitigate that, the state allows us to work with the local municipality to provide crossing guards to help the students across. And if the crossing guards are in place, then we wouldn't provide transportation again. And as you know, the current challenges that we're having with driver shortage and all that stuff, having to really look at following the guidelines as best as we possibly can and putting in the processes in place, such as the crossing guards to assist and take some of the burden off transportation, because there's no point in saying, yes, the student should be transported and we don't have the resource to do it. It just makes it difficult for everybody in the end. So as we go through this, please bear in mind that, what the guidelines are, and if the possibility exists for us to put the crossing guards in place, then yes, it would impact the transporting of students that are less than 2 miles, because we're going to be trying to follow the guidelines as much as possible.
Thank you.
Carla?
Good, I'm not muted. Jason, I wanted to ask again, Mayor Singer's second part of his question was like with SAC 318, was that looked into adding that to O5C?
That was my question. Okay.
We all had that thought. Should this be coming up under discussion later, or should we be doing this now?
Yes.
We did look at that, but again, it's enrollment and the number of students in these areas is critical. So SAC 318 contains 141 residing K-5 students and about 110 attend Calusa. So that's a lot of extra students to then, it would have to be some sort of swap. It's about 110 students, 205C. We'd have to look at removing a similar number out of O5C. Possibly we could look up in the northeastern, corner of the Calusa zone, but it's just a lot of kids in here. If it was only 20, 25, but there's 110 K-5 attending Calusa. So it's just a lot of students in here. So we couldn't do both. If we do, we're going to have to look at moving another area.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cynthia, you're muted if you're talking.
Charmaine? And then Dave?
My other questions will go in discussion, but I just wanted to get transportation. And this question could probably be answered in discussion, but I'm gonna put it out there. How many of these SACs that are currently at the new O5C would require transportation?
Say that again, please. I missed that.
How many SACs, out of the SACs that are currently on this screen for O5C, how many, who would require transportation right now? Are there any locations for O5C that would require transportation? If so, identify which one. And like I said, you can have that answer at discussion time. I just wanted to put it out there. So
we'll have it for you at discussion time. The general guidelines, any student that's over 2 miles from the school will be requiring transportation.
Right. So I just wanted to identify with this new
Okay.
school current model, how many of them is that? I can't see, it doesn't tell me right now with the maps. It doesn't say, you know, SAC 314, 2 miles from the school. So like I said, the answer is fine during discussion time.
Okay, we'll get that to you. Mhm.
Thank
David?
you.
Yeah, many of you may know that I was a school principal in Palm Beach County Schools for a very long time, and I've been an administrator and teacher at K through 12. So first a question, then a comment. The question, and by the way, Charmaine, I think her question is excellent. Can't wait to hear the answer. It's a really good question. But my question is the Military Trail crossing. What east-west road is that they cross?
Potomac Road.
Potomac.
Potomac.
Anytime you cross Military Trail anywhere in Palm Beach County Schools, when it involves the two, what I call CHs, children and change, people get really focused. And this involves both, of course. So I think how the kids get from one side to the other is really going to be key. And as a parent, my kids are grown now. That would be, I know, a big concern, and I'm glad we're addressing it. The other comment is that I've known Seth Moldovan for many, many years. He's bright, hardworking, intelligent, innovative. I could go on and on. At some point, he may want to talk from his perspective, and I have been in the shoes we might be putting him in, which is having a school that already has, when you open, an overburdened core facility and what that's like for the quality of education you can provide. If you've never actually had to do that and live it and try to deal with that, it's really kind of hard to understand. So I know Seth has an opinion on this, and I would be interested in hearing that whenever he thinks it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are ready to move to public comments. We have 25 in discussion with staff. They are prepared to bring the individuals in in terms of direction from the committee. We're suggesting to you that it'll be a 2-minute time limit, because even with that, we're dealing with 50 minutes from or a minimum of 50 minutes from where we are now, because you have to go in and out. If I don't see any objection to that, Virginia?
Oh, I was just going to say, unless you see an objection, we could go forward with that.
Yeah. Okay, if by seeing no objection to that, we will ask the persons to limit themselves to 2 minutes. Patrick is handling the time for us. Thank you so much, Patrick. We definitely appreciate it. And Jason, with everything else, will be taking care of the in and out. And we're going to listen.
All right, let me first check with our Zoom technician. We've got Dawn. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Once I begin calling the names, you're ready to move the the speakers, the folks that are requested to speak into the panelist
Yes.
area. Okay.
Excuse me, if the speakers could identify what SAC they're talking about, and we could make sure that the map is showing that SAC while they're talking, that would be helpful.
You read my mind, Kathy. I was going to ask that as we began. Yeah. So we're going to call 2 names. The first person will be.
Before you start,
Sure.
Jason, if you take a look at the cheat sheet that you have, there is one speaker where we don't have a SAC listed. So we might want to also focus on that one, please.
Okay, let me put up a development map. It's very similar to this. Well, I don't know if it has all the area. Let me leave this one up for now. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll call 2 names. The first person will, Dawn will grant access into the panelist area for the 2 minutes. Once the timer goes off, we'll then Dawn will then move that speaker back to the attendee area, and then the second person is just sort of on that, just notifying them they're next to go. So they're just for them to be ready, and then we'll continue on from there. And yes, we do have the information the speakers provided, including the community name and their SAC when they signed up. But if they wouldn't, if you could please restate it just to make sure all that information is accurate, and it's also for the record, we would highly appreciate that. And again, I want to thank everyone for their patience, as this was our first ABC virtual meeting. So thank you very much for your patience. And so the first speaker will be Kristen Gallo, and then followed by, once Kristen is finished, then we'll move on to Christina Beto Jennings.
She is not on. Kristen Gallo. Yes, Kristen Gallo is not on.
Okay, and what about Christina Beto Jennings?
She's on.
Okay, then after Christina would be Brooke Moriarty. So Christina Beto Jennings would be first, and then Brooke Moriarty.
Okay, both of them are panelists.
So we're gonna allow in one at a time, Dawn, not both.
Oh, okay.
One at a time. We're just letting the second person, let them be aware that they're to be on the ready, that there will be let in next. So one at a time, if you don't mind. Thank you. So first would be Christina Beto Jennings.
And she'll have to unmute herself if she is.
All right, Dawn, let's go ahead and we'll do two at a time. Let's make this efficient. We'll just make sure we know who's speaking first. We'll make it easier on you, because I know it takes a little time.
Yeah.
So go ahead and allowing Christina, grant permissions for Christina Beto Jennings and Brooke Moriarty, with Christina Beto Jennings speaking first, and then Miss Moriarty. Thank you.
Okay. Both of them are in as panelists.
Okay. We're not seeing any here. Oh, no. Yeah, there we go. Well, there's Miss Moriarty.
If she's muted, she'll need to unclick the mute icon.
Ms. Moriarty, being you're the first one in, why don't you go ahead and go first then?
Hey there, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So thank you for allowing us to speak on this. And I know this isn't an easy job for anybody, and everybody's going to have opinions. But I do have to say that you keep talking about why, I'm sorry, I'm in SAC 324, Mill Pond. And I keep hearing talk about why we have to move away from Calusa, but I think it's somewhat missing the point of what people are concerned about. I know a lot of people are okay with moving to a new elementary school. Some aren't, but a lot of people are okay with moving to a new elementary school, but we want to keep it local to the community. And yeah, I do agree that there's a road in between us, but connecting us with a school that's 5.5 miles away, and the schools that are across St. Andrews that are within the no bus zone, and that they could walk as well, seems strange, seems odd. We're connected. There's a big industrial zone in between this ES 05C. Ella, stop, sorry. Anyways, and so I'm looking at the numbers, and it's like, well, we couldn't put all of them in the new elementary school, but the numbers are listed, which I appreciate, but it looks like there is potential, or attending school or students are 663 in this St. Andrews area. And it just, I don't understand why we would go to school with kids that are 5 miles away and not kids that are 1.25 miles away from the new elementary school. That just doesn't make sense to our neighborhood. And St. Andrews is a road, but we walk over. One of my kids go to Murakami, and the bus stop for my neighborhood is across the street, and we walk to that regularly. The neighborhood in Colonnade, there's a park we go to regularly. It's pretty normal that all of these kids are together and play regularly. So I feel like the focus, a lot of the talk was about how Mill Pond doesn't want to leave Calusa, but it's more an issue of, it just seems like the boundaries have been drawn in a strange way for a community that is close knit and shares a bus right now to Calusa. So that's my spiel.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. All right, let's Christina Beto Jennings. And then next, Veronica Tremator. And then I'll go down Laszlo Bohitos. How are we looking, Dawn, on?
Jason,
Veronica, she in the meet?
panelist.
Great. And then after Ms. Tremator would be Laszlo Bohitos. Or Bojdos. I'm sorry, I may have mispronounced it. Laszlo Bojdos.
Okay.
Bojtos after Ms. Tremator.
Mm-hmm.
Laszlo's. Jason, can we ask that whoever comes on, they can just unmute and start speaking? I think Laszlo Bohitos is on.
Yes, hi. Yes, actually it's Bojtos, or could be Boitos. Yeah, it's a J and not an I. So that's fine. My question is more about validating addresses. I believe the current system of showing 2 bills are not enough. I attended the last boundary meeting that was in Palm Beach County, drove there, and there were many people speaking up that they have seen the numbers in sacks, like Boca West having, as an example, 30 kids, and that family said that they know for a fact that there are only like 3 families in that neighborhood. So where the other 27 came from, they don't know. So I believe that there are lots of so there is lots of assumption here that everybody's address is valid, but in reality, again, what I heard at the last meeting, there were many communities spoke up that we do not have so many kids, and they know the community personally. So would there be any more? I'm sure there are many other ways to check address validity. Looking at tax filing address, or many other ways to look at making sure that the problem is not. I mean, maybe the problem is not this big as it is, because this is a popular area. So maybe many people kind of use fake addresses, or like ask a friend, okay, let's send my phone bill, like mobile phone bill, or a credit card statement over there. I'm an engineer, and I believe that I'm always for making sure that things are valid and reliable. And I believe there are many ways to check address validity.
Okay, Patrick, I can't see you. Do you have the timer running? I don't see him. Okay. All right, that was the 2 minutes.
Next, we
Thank you
have
for your
Danny
comments.
Johnson. Danny Johnson.
Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
We hear you
Can you see me?
when we see you.
Okay. Hi, how are you guys? Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I live in 324 in Timber Creek. You know, I can speak for myself and a few neighbors. We are definitely excited about this new school. We've heard wonderful things about the principal. So for me personally, you know, it's not so much where we're going to be. We're excited about this, but my major concerns, as I believe Brooke voiced earlier, were about the zone itself. You know, I grew up in Boca. I went to a private school. I didn't have any school friends in my neighborhood and the surrounding areas, and I don't want that for my children. I always envied the kids that could walk to each other's houses, meet up at the park. This is why my husband and I chose to live in Timber Creek. We moved to our neighborhood and this area for a sense of community and to be part of a group of neighborhoods in the St. Andrews corridor. I remember when we were looking for houses, it wasn't specific to Timber Creek or Mill Pond. It was just, you know, we want to be somewhere on St. Andrews. And I know for a lot of you that aren't local to this area, we keep hearing, you know, about like pulling kids and numbers and this and that, but like, our kids are people, we're people, and we need to take into account our children, what's best for them. You know, we share parks and play dates. And as Brooke mentioned, you know, we walk across the street, we share buses with this community. We're a community of communities. And so our concern really is that this proposed zone doesn't feel like a neighborhood school at all. When you look at the way it is, it's like this kind of like, we feel like we've been annexed away from our neighbors and our children's friends and the people that we've chosen for them to grow up with. And we've been grouped with this area that's, you know, as Brooke mentioned, you know, 5 miles away, northeast of Military, across an entire highway. We share nothing with these areas. There's huge commercial and industrial things in between. And this whole zone runs up 95 and includes a very transient population, with us kind of bolstering the south and then Hidden Valley at the northeast. I personally believe in this school and want it to be great. And I think that my concern is the lack of community feel and, you know, having a transient population. Are we going to get that buy-in and parent involvement that is going to be necessary to make the school incredibly, you know, successful and great? Like, I really do feel that the school has great potential, but my concern is that we don't have the right zone, and we're not going to have a community school. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Yes. Jason, who's next?
All right, Courtney Renaud. I see she's in. Go ahead.
Ms. Gallo is here, the first person as well.
Pat, could you please mute? Would you please mute your mic? Thank you.
Courtney?
Yes. Hi, my name is Courtney Renaud. I'm a resident of Timber Creek as well, SAC 324 in Boca Raton. I actually grew up in Timber Creek. I've lived here since I was in elementary school and I went to Calusa myself. So I'm here today just to vocalize my concern that I have with the proposed rezoning, which is some of what you have already heard. When I looked at the proposal, I knew the school was closed and I had figured Timber Creek could be a part of that. But to see that split of the zone cutting right through the St. Andrews corridor was really shocking for me because, like everyone has mentioned, and having grown up here, St. Andrews is the community. I mean, we ride bikes on that road, we go to play dates, we exercise on that road. So with this rezoning, it's splitting that community in half. And I think it's definitely going to have a negative impact on just what took many, many years to create the safe space that we all live in and that the community that we've built over time. And I definitely realize that not living here, you see that road and you have these different SACs, and it might not be clear that this is the community, but I'm really thankful that you're giving us parents the chance to vocalize how important the community is to us. So this current proposal will definitely create hardships and divisions in terms of how we've come to survive as young working families in this community, where I share carpool with neighbors that are less than 60 seconds across the road at St. Andrews. And it's really difficult that this rezoning, has major impacts in affecting that aftercare support, that carpooling support that I get from what is my community on that St. Andrews corridor. So this is definitely going to create a hardship. And I do think, as Ms. Charmaine has mentioned, there are areas of opportunity in other SACs like SAC 315, where there are shifts that can be made to help support keeping that St. Andrews corridor and that community together. In addition, I'm just also concerned about the lack of single family homes that are a part of this rezoning for the new elementary school. So overall, my request is to just work to keep that St. Andrews corridor together, and to also look at the mix of single family homes that make up this new school, because I think that transient audience, or this transient student body at this new school will have a negative impact on the overall environment for all the students. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. So next, who do we have next? We have Marshall Jazzband, Aaron Wright, Seth Shepard. Marshall Jazzband, Aaron Wright, Seth Shepard, Dawn. Okay, Jenny Schwartz, see you. Go ahead. There you,
Can you see me?
Yep, we see you and hear you.
Awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
hi. Okay, so first I want to tell you, the ABC, that I appreciate your efforts with the introduction of the school. I think it's going to do really amazing things. I think it's going to be awesome, and it'll alleviate the overcrowding so we could continue to accommodate Boca's growing population.
Would you mind, I'm sorry, would you mind just stating where you reside?
I'm sorry, Timber Creek, 324.
Thank you.
So I picked up my daughter at Calusa yesterday. She's in first grade, and outside Calusa, there's a giant sign that says Calusa Community Elementary School. And I immediately started crying, specifically because of that word community. It struck me right in the gut, because with our current boundary lines, with Timber Creek going with the current boundary lines, I really fear that we're not going to have that community feel anymore. As I said, I live in Timber Creek, which is SAC 324. SAC 324 is 2 neighborhoods out of 8. We're very close knit. We're part of the St. Andrews corridor. We share playgrounds, synagogues, churches, traffic lights, intersections, shopping centers. I can go on and on. And Mr. Link, I know that you're playing a number game here, but you have annexed Timber Creek and Mill Pond from our sister neighborhoods that are stone throw away. They're literally across the street. And instead, we're being grouped with an area east of Military, which is home of commercial space and many multifamily homes. So I'm disappointed and brokenhearted that a people-centric approach wasn't considered when drawing these lines. There is nothing more important than the love and support of community, and it's the #1 reason I moved to the St. Andrews corridor. I urge the board to keep our surrounding neighborhoods unified so we can continue thriving as a community. Again, I just want to clarify, SAC 324 is not against the new school. We are against losing our community of the St. Andrews Boulevard. St. Andrews Boulevard is the nucleus, the artery of 8 communities that are super, super close knit. You cannot tear us away from each other. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Jason, can you hold a minute? I'm resending this to Patrick. He's having problems.
That's fine. I'll keep the time. I see Aaron Wright. Aaron Wright, would you like to begin? So it's Kristen Gallo, Dawn, we've got Kristen Gallo, Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova. Any of them are available? She'll commence after Aaron.
Aaron Wright, hi.
Hi, Aaron, we hear and see you.
Good. My name's Aaron Wright. I live at 4-6 Redwood Lane in Boca Raton. And I've been a resident for 35 years. We're located in Hidden Valley, SAC 309. I have a 3rd grader at Calusa and a 6th grader at Verde K-8. I'd like to just want to let you guys know how excited we are to be a part of the new elementary school, and then our family fully supports these rezoning plans. It's a bit daunting to be moving from a place our children have been at since kindergarten to an unknown, but knowing Seth Moldovan, since we have started at Verde, I have no doubt the new elementary school will be a wonderful place for our kids, so we are really excited. Having only 700 kids will be a new experience coming from a school with over 1,200. This will not only be great for O5C, but the relief for Calusa will also have a great impact for the kids and teachers there. We're fully supportive of this plan and hope it will be approved. And I just want to say that our SAC is always in these rezoning plans, always. 5 years ago, I spoke at the live meeting. We're always on the outskirts because we're so far away from both of these schools. We are a group of single family homes, which I do feel, I totally agree with 324 that is really important. So please keep our SAC in mind to keep, you know, just, we want to be part of an area where we're not going to be rezoned again. That's our hope. We want to be maintained in the school for the next 20 years or however long. So just, you know, keep our SAC in mind when you do think about these numbers and families and transient, you know, communities and things like that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. All right, Dawn, do we have another speaker? Lisa,
Who's next?
I think Jenny Schwartz is still showing. I believe she spoke. She did.
Jenny.
We have Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova, Kristen Gallo.
Kristen Gallo's having a hard time getting in, and she's really passionate about speaking. That is all.
Okay, we'll hopefully she can get in. We'll await. Nadia Barkova, Lisa Markovsky, Marsho Jaspin, Aaron Wright. I'm sorry, Aaron Wright just spoke. Seth Shepard. There's Miss Gallo.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we see and hear you. Perfect.
Okay, great. So I'm Kristen Gallo. I'm from 324 in Mill Pond. I'm not only an alumni from Calusa, my kids go to Calusa, and I am a teacher at Calusa. I totally understand that Calusa is overcrowded. I'm there, I'm in the classrooms. I understand that you guys are providing us a new school, which will greatly reduce capacity. However, just like the other speakers, you're breaking up our community, and you're taking away right now the way this is just kind of spanning across 95 from north to south. It's taking away our community. If you incorporated 318 and 313, you could easily do the numbers by taking 308 or 309, keeping them at Calusa. I mean, they're north of Clintmore, and they have to literally pass Calusa, like they said, between the industrial space. It's just right now the way the boundary lines are, it does feel like an overflow school to us, instead of that community school, which is why all of us moved here. And if you're on the board, I really encourage you to drive down to Boca and kind of drive this area and see where this zone is. And you can kind of see what, you know, we're talking about in regards to this. Also, in regards to us being walkable, we did our own study in Mill Pond. We're about almost 2 miles. And I mean, I would never walk any of my kids across Military Trail, a 6-lane highway. So there has to be something done to rectify that. I know our neighborhood, Mill Pond and Timber Creek, we fill our own buses. We actually ride a bus with Les Jardins and Colonnade, and half of those neighborhoods are now being brought to staying at Calusa while we're being pulled here. So I'm just asking that you consider everything south of Yamato, make it more of a bubble so that we can all be included. And I really appreciate you guys, the time that you're putting into this and doing this for us. And just, we're not floating all specials at Calusa. We do have some that they don't have to float to. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gallo. Appreciate your comments. Looks like Ms. Markovsky is ready to go.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you all. I live in Parkside, that's SAC 342A. I was asked to speak on behalf of Parkside to let everyone know how excited we are about the proposal. Our community is fully supportive of the rezoning to Addison Meisner. We actually did a survey of our community. I have the survey results here. And not one person voted in opposition to the rezoning. So our neighborhood really fully supports this. And, as you mentioned before, the Addison Meisner is a lot closer to us than Verde. So that's one of the reasons that we're really supportive. I have a first grader. I really hope that this plan will be approved, that I can send her to Addison Meisner. And I just want to thank you all for your time and efforts that went into this, and just make sure that everybody knows how supportive our neighborhood is about this proposal.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments. Appreciate it. Who do we have next? Dawn, do we have? Excuse me? Jenny Schwartz. I think she just spoke.
Oh, she did? Okay.
Yeah, I think she mentioned, I think Kristen Gallo was trying to connect.
Okay.
We have Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova, Marco Jazpan, Thomas Guy, Sheila Cahoon, Brett Yonan. So Sheila Cahoon, Brett Yonan, Marco Jazpan, Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova. Thomas Guy. I see Thomas Guy. Mr. Guy, if you're ready, we are.
I am ready. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good. We see and hear you. Go ahead.
So currently I am residing in 342A in Waterside. I have a first grader that goes to Verde K. I see that a lot of parents are kind of touching on a community issue. We don't really have that where we are. It's a gated community. There's a lot of older people there. However, my son is a little bit different than your normal first grader. It takes him a very long time to get used to change. He is very sensitive to change. Unlike a lot of first graders, he is very eager to go to school at Verde K. Principal Seth Moldovan has done an amazing job there. And even though he's only been there 2 years, he wakes me up in the morning to go to school. He does his homework on Mondays. And one of the only things that he has ever made me promise him is that we keep him in that school at Verde K. So, I mean, if it was something where we were going to the new school, we maybe wouldn't be as opposed to changing. And since a lot, from what I'm hearing from the parent that just spoke in Parkside, it sounds like majority of them or all of them are opting to go to Addison. So I would be looking to kind of, I don't even know if there's a way to opt out or a voluntary opt out. but keeping my son in Verdi K. He has regular play dates with the kids in his class. And it's just not something that uprooting him. I don't know. I guess when I grew up, I wasn't really as excited. When I see that excitement in his eyes, it definitely, when I saw this proposal of pulling him out, it makes me sick to my stomach. It's definitely something that's affecting me. I don't want to pull him out of that school and have to go through. I mean, even something as small as moving houses, he becomes a recluse. He shuts down. He doesn't really want to talk or do anything or play, and it takes him a long time. And I don't want to go do that again.
Thank you.
I'm starting to get emotional. I'm sorry. Thank you. Have a good day.
That's okay. I appreciate you taking the time. Really do. Thank you, Mr. Guy.
Ryan Ward.
Ryan Ward is in. Mr. Ward, if you're ready.
Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. First off, I want to just say thank you to all the committee members. I come from a family of civil servants and first responders and educators, and I know how fun dealing with these topics are, and I can't imagine you were all excited to go before the firing squad tonight. So thank you for all showing up and for hearing us all out. I am in zone SAC 324 in Mill Pond. My wife and I wanted to move here for many, many years, but we couldn't afford it. So we worked really hard and we finally got here, and we love it here. I'm going to echo a lot of the sentiments of what the other people said, but we've been hearing that everything's predicated on the numbers, but like the previous speaker, our kids don't really care about enrollment numbers. They want to be able to ride their bikes, houses in their classes. And, I grew up in the same house for 18 years, and I have some of my closest friends are friends that I, met in first grade and second grade and third grade. And I think that there's a lot of, stability that comes from that. In terms of, I think, all children deserve this. So it's not just kids in this area, but, I'm very, very serious about trying to keep our community together. For us, I stand in my backyard, I'm looking at another school zone. If I turn to the left, I'm looking at another school zone. And it's really, really challenging trying to explain to our kids why they won't be able to see their friends at school anymore, and all number of things. For us personally, you mentioned that may require a swap, then I'll just overtly ask for a swap. I do not want to be split up from everyone we know. My colleagues that live in Colonnades and New Floresta and Mill Pond convinced me to move here. And, my kids are growing up with them. And it's a little bit challenging when, we work hard, save hard, finally get here. And then being here doesn't mean anything because our kids are kind of put somewhere else. So I hear the beeper going off, and to be respectful of everyone's time.
Thank you.
I appreciate your thoughtful consideration of all these topics.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Okay, we've got, looks like Michael and Laura Lamana. Yeah, Michael Lamana. You ready to
Hey
go?
guys, hey Jason. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Hi, we hear and see you. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. So my name is Michael Lamana. My daughter attends Addison Meisner. We currently reside in SAC 335. I'd like to echo a lot of what Ryan just said. And we chose that community because we had friends that have kids in the same age that go to Addison Meisner. So we were able to buy a house just last year in that area. And it was with the full intention to go to Addison Meisner and with her to be with her friends, excuse me. And this news obviously greatly affects us because just like Ryan had just said, we purchased that house to be with her friends and to have that community feel. Also that Addison Meisner is K through 8. So it'd be a great school to stay with for a while. I don't know that this is a Q&A session, but when I was looking at the numbers in SAC 335, I think I heard you say that there's 35 kids and you guys are projecting it to go up to 100. I don't believe that that is fairly accurate. Also, you're growing the Addison Meisner attendance by 100 kids per year for FY22 and FY23, or actually school year 22-23, school year 23-24. And that's 20% of what they are now, without there being considerable construction in the area that would add 20% of the population to that school. But most importantly, it's closest to us in your walking grid. It's right within walking distance of Addison Meisner. And one of our favorite activities every morning is to walk our daughter to school. And our son will be attending Addison, well, hopefully attending Addison Meisner in a year or 2 years. And we're really looking forward to being able to walk them through and keep that community feel together. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lamanna, for your comments. All right. Next, we'll go toward the top of the list. Manny Itani, I think you were in next. Mr. Itani, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, sir. Hi.
All right. We hear you.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just set up over here. Can you see me?
We do.
All right, awesome. So I'll keep this organized. I'll have 3 different sections over here. One is the business, one is the logistics side of things, educational side, and the third one is the social side. There's 3 things that we have to consider with our children that forms them into being adults, which are all those things. Now, the logistics as far as the state, where the money goes to, how long it takes to transfer to school, perfectly understandable. Now, we should take a note from Lisa Markovsky on what she did when it comes to the survey of her neighborhood, which is all for it. And I'm
where
proposing.
do you live, sir? I'm sorry. Which area?
I'm sorry. I'm at a SAC 309, which is pretty much at the edge on the top northeast, very far away. We are actually going to have an extra mile to school, but that's not what we want to talk about. What I want to use my time for is trying to see if we can get Lisa Markovsky note and pretty much do a survey and try to ask the parents. I'm sure that a lot of parents will opt in to kind of choose where the school they're going to go to and what they're going to do. Now, Thomas Guy, he's against it. And Ryan Ward has a location constraint. We have the similar situation where we literally had a 25% increase in the rent cost because we wanted to stay within Calusa elementary zone. That is major things for people such as Michael Lamar, for example, where they purchased the house. So I think basically, with a little bit of time left, I would say that this is something that affects a lot of people. And think about my daughter. She was crying when she heard that she might be transferring to school. It took her a long time to get used to the friends. But I'm sure that this new school might be actually the best thing ever. We don't know. With 20 seconds left, I would like to say that I think Lisa Markovsky did something good, which we should potentially follow and try to see and get a polls from all the parents who would like to transfer and see if that helps your numbers without actually forcing it, and then see what you have left, and go from there, because this is something that I think is going to help us a lot. So thank you guys for doing the work that you're doing, and hopefully we can get something positive coming out of it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, next, Ms. Cahoon, Sheila Cahoon, if you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
All right, perfect. So I am at SAC 335, which is the SAC that the district is proposing changing from Addison Meisner to J.C. Mitchell. I do have a lot of concerns, so I'm going to try to get through the most important ones kind of quick. The first one is, and the most important one, is regarding to the quality of the schools, for a lack of a better word. I know that JC Mitchell has made great improvement, but its ratings and rankings are considerably lower than Edson Meisner's. Out of the schools that the district wants to move around, all of them are 9s and 10s on greatschools.org, except for JC Mitchell, which is a 7 out of 10. According to US News, Edson Meisner is ranked 141 in Florida elementary schools, and JC Mitchell is ranked 456. I'm extremely concerned that the Edson Meisner students will be impacted because they're not going to be offered the same level of education. And I feel that that will hinder the progress that they've made so far. We talked about the capacity at Edson Meisner. Edson Meisner was just rebuilt, and it definitely got some more elbow room over the past 2 years. I just wanted to point out that SAC 335 has 8 communities. Most of them are condos, and most of the SACs at Edson Meisner are single family homes. So I feel that by allowing SAC 335 to stay on at Edson Meisner, it would bring a diversity, socioeconomic diversity to school. Also, I do have concerns about JC Mitchell's capabilities in the sense that, for example, they have 7% of ESE gifted, which is considerably lower to all the other schools that the district is impacting. Edson Meisner, for example, has 17% of gifted.
Thank you.
So I know I'm over my time. I'll wrap it up. So my ask is for the district to live SAC 335 where it is. And if that's not possible, we need to find a better way to grandfather the students. My son is in 3rd grade. So if this is approved, so then he would go to another middle school for 2 years, only to move again. That school is all that he knows. So to uproot him where he's not going to have the same quality of education is not fair to him.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Okay. Mr. Brett Yunan, if you're ready, we are.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We see and hear you perfectly.
Good evening. My name is Brett Yonan. I live in SAC 324, which I assume you guys knew was going to be problematic since we're the only SAC that got our very own page on the analysis. Obviously, there's no boundaries here. You guys are all well-meaning public servants, and we appreciate it. But I think this boundary for the new school misses sort of a bedrock principle of early childhood education, and that's going to school with your neighbors. I get that, Mr. Link, mathematically it makes sense. Geographically it makes sense. Whatever boardroom calculus was done kind of adds up here to place us in that particular school. And I understand Andrews Avenue from 10,000 feet above, if you don't know the neighborhood, looks like an awesome dividing line to use. But, you know, from a community level, for the families, for the kids, for your constituents, Mayor Singer and Ms. Drucker, it's confounding to use Andrews in this particular area between Glades and Yamato as a dividing line. It just doesn't make sense. But more so than that, I'm concerned about the boundary. It snakes up I-95. It's in the shape of a staircase. It covers commercial space, medical complexes, warehouses, office parks, a university, part of the tarmac at the airport, which I guess is fine. But then you start looking for neighborhoods your kids are going to hang out with, and the next big block of kids is in Hidden Valley. It's a nice neighborhood. Miss Wright, who spoke, seems wonderful. But, you know, for my kids to have classmates up there and to see them, I got to hop on 95. I got to go up 3 exits. And that means no more running into classmates at the park. It means no more impromptu play dates. They go to different little leagues. They go to different libraries. They go to different synagogues and mosques and churches. Uber Eats doesn't even deliver that far. It's just a completely different neighborhood, and we shouldn't be grouped with them. Not their fault, not our fault, but we're spread out. You know, kids belong in a community school, and and we've talked about puzzle pieces and all these different things, and it feels like the kids in Hidden Valley and the kids in Mill Pond and Timber Creek are kind of being used to bookend some math equation to fill out this overthrow boundary or this overfill boundary. And it just doesn't seem like their best interests are in consideration here. You know, kids need to go to school with their neighbors, breaking up this St. Andrews corridor is a mistake. I mean, we share everything. Like I said, churches, Publix, Andrews connects us. It is not a dividing line. And to the extent that we do go to this new school, to suggest that kids could walk along Potomac, which is a notorious speeding zone, past the university where college kids are coming in and out, cross over Military, which is 6 lanes, that must qualify for a bus. I mean, no one would let their kids in their right mind do such a thing. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your comments.
And the text.
Okay. Dawn, do we have Veronica Tremator, Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova?
Veronica is not on the attendees list.
Karen Turpak?
Karen, I think she's the panelist already. Karen.
Karen Turpak? I don't see Karen Turpak.
Okay, she's
Jennifer Steelman? Kristen Gallo, we're still waiting on Kristen Gallo, if she was able to join.
Kristen Gallo, did she speak already?
She
No.
did.
She did?
I thought she did, yes.
Yes.
So we have
She actually did. Thank you. very
Ronald
much.
Scott,
Karen Turpak, Jennifer Steelman, Michelle Goldman, Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova.
do we have Ronald Scott?
Yes, he's on. I see him on.
Okay. Ronald
Or he was
Scott.
just on.
Kaniak, yeah. Hi, everybody.
And you. Thank you.
Ron Kaniak. I live in outside of the zones, but I'm an attorney and was retained by Parkside, SAC 342A. Just want to echo what Lisa Murkowski said, which is that the community is wholly in favor of the proposal and their proposed rezoning to Addison Meisner, and thank the committee for all its hard work.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any further comments?
So this was 342A, you stated you were.
342A for Parkside, yes.
Okay.
No, just, support the proposals and appreciate the committee's work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Dawn, Karen Turpak, Jennifer Steelman, Nadia Barkova, Seth Shepard, Crystal Novoa.
Jason, they're not on.
Okay, Laura and Jake Weissman.
They're not on.
There's a few people that's on attendee and they're raising their hands. I just want you all to know that. You have
some of the people that are raising their hand, it was up and they just didn't put it down.
No, for the attendees, Kristen Nova, she lowered her hand and raised it back up. Michelle Goldman is under attendees as well.
Yeah, Michelle Goldman did not speak yet, so if she's available.
And I was trying to get
Brett Cunningham.
Michelle Goldman.
They're both under the attendees,
Yep.
so they're not under our panelists.
Dawn, if you can let Michelle Goldman, if she's ready to go. Jennifer Steelman.
Michelle Goldman. There's no Michelle Gold. There's no Michelle. Okay, hold on. Michelle Goldman, yeah.
As well as Kristen Nova.
Kristen Nova, yeah.
Thank you, Charmaine. Appreciate the assistance.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, Ms. Goldman, we hear and see you.
Okay, fantastic. Hi. Thank you for coordinating this. It means a lot to me and my neighbors to be able to have our say and for you to take into account our feelings on this. So I live in 324 in Mill Pond. So we are part of the contingent that really wants to stay together. I know our proximity to the new school will have us moving over there, and I'm one of the neighbors that's excited to have the opportunity to move to a new school. 2 of my children have gone to Calusa. I have a first grader now that will be starting this new elementary school. And I think it's important for us to stay with at least the group in 318, if that was correct. But further than that, as to the point that the caller made before, I think Calusa is actually going to be losing a lot of its diversity if these new boundaries go into effect by losing all of those rental communities along the corridor. I think that's going to completely change the demographics of Calusa and some of what makes that school so great. So I think the solution would be sort of to split that in half and have north of Yamato stay with Calusa and south of Yamato go on over to the new school. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
All right. I appreciate your comments. We all do. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Dawn, do we have Crystal Navoa?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking from SAC 335, and my daughter is Addison Meisner. And I just kind of want to really reiterate, and I didn't expect to hear the same thing, but it's what I was going to say. The sole purpose of purchasing in 335 was to attend Addison Meisner for its rating. And we know that that's a key thing. That's what I believe a lot of people have done. And it was brought up before, we need to consider the rating differences as well. I think it's very important because buying into a 10 out of 10 school to move into a rated 7 out of 10 school really affects all of the children there from an educational point of view, what's available to them. And I believe this is important because we're looking at also I would like to also mention to my child is also in the gifted class. That's another thing too. Gifted class versus in Addison versus the gifted facilities available at JC Mitchell are also very different. So I'm looking at this from an educational point of view, what's best for these children. I do agree someone said that a lot of this switching around in the other zones are from schools that are 9s and 10s, and that's great. And I'm happy for them that they can stay within that level. But this isn't just a 10 to a 9, this is a 10 to a 7 thereabout in general ratings. And that should be considered. And I would like to couch that as well with the fact that someone mentioned earlier by moving the people from the SAC 335 and putting them into JC Mitchell and then moving the same number of children almost out of JC Mitchell into the new school, it's disrupting all of those children to end up with basically the same number at JC Mitchell. So I don't see that as being beneficial to the children from the adjusting. These are kids. Like someone also said, the changes are difficult for them, but more so too for me, the educational point of view of buying into that area for a 10 out of 10 school and moving all those children into a lesser level school, to put that nicely.
Thank you.
Okay. I just have one thing. You called Marco Jaspin. He was having trouble getting in. I do have him on my phone. If you would allow him to have his 2 minutes because he can't get through the link. Up to you. Just wanted to say that.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, he's a speaker. We certainly don't want to have anyone misspeaking.
Okay, so I'll let him go ahead now for his 2 minutes. Thank you so much for mine.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody. This is Marcio Jaspin. I moved my family from Lighthouse Point, which is a great area, great community, to Addison Meisner, and
we may have lost the connection.
Maybe we could reach out, since there's an email on both of those individuals. We
Right.
could reach out to them via email and ask them if they could share their comments again to the committee so that we could get that information to, that they want to share.
Okay.
The other thing, and I'm interrupting here, please remember when we go out to community input, there isn't a time limit. That's been our past procedure, that persons are allowed to speak without a timer. And as we start to deliberate in a few minutes, we'll be dealing with that aspect. Can we just look at where we are as it relates to the list and everyone that may be left? There may be someone waiting.
Jason Veronica is in now.
Veronica Tremator. Okay.
Yeah, hi, this is her husband, Rob Tremator.
All right, sir, we hear you. You want to
Okay.
He's not
perfect.
a speaker, Jason. Jason, we got to be respectful of the policy. He is not a speaker and it's not fair to the procedures. So if I may interject, and if she cannot speak, we need to be respectful of the speakers who actually signed up to speak.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I don't know how you feel about that, but.
You're a member of the committee who's raising an objection, which you have the right to do.
Okay.
I can get my wife. That's fine. If you don't mind.
We would appreciate it, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll go grab her right now.
Just get her, don't grab her.
Yep, she's right here.
All right, I
Okay.
guess I'm on the spot here. Okay, so hi everyone, thank you. I am a mom of two. Both my kids go to Calusa. We moved actually from East Boca to Mill Pond to be at this school and obviously this wonderful neighborhood that we live in. Basically, my concerns are similar to everyone else's, splitting up, our neighborhood and our children. We go to play dates together. We ride the buses together. We go to our churches, so to keeping our neighborhood together. Also, another concern is the bus, not having a bus, and the far walk and the dangerous roads that these young kids have to walk down. Also, there's two entrances to a very big university, Lynn University, that the kids will have to be walking across, which is a concern. And then, of course, crossing over Military Trail.
There's 16 interactions.
There's 16 interactions.
Intersections.
Sorry. That these little ones will have to cross through Mill Pond over to, which is obviously a concern. And I guess that's basically it.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Dawn, is there anyone else in the attendee area wishing to speak? I've got some on the list. It appears they may not be in the meeting. Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova, Karen Turpak.
Nadia Bakova. Yes, Seth is not here. Nadia is not here.
Lauren
Jason, is Christina, she's been holding her hands up for a while. Is Christina a speaker? Christina Boto?
Jennings, yes, we called her at the very beginning. I don't think
she's been in the attendees section with her hands up for a while.
Okay,
she's still there.
Yeah, let me move her.
Hello.
Hi, we hear you, Miss.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm sorry. I guess being the first speaker, I'm not sure if there was some kind of, I never saw the panelist screen come up to join. So thank you so much for letting me speak. I really worked hard on this. So I wanted to make sure I got my voice heard. So my daughter, Clara Beto, she's a kindergarten student at Verdi. We live in Paradise Palms, which is in SAC 333B. And it's being proposed for redistricting to the new school. And first of all, I truly do commend everything you're doing. I've worked in government before. I know how difficult these decisions are to make. But now I have to put my mom hat on, and I've got a daughter who loves Verdi Elementary. And not only that, we specifically moved to Paradise Palms so that Clara could attend Verdi. It's in walking distance from her home. We're about 1.5 miles. We go straight down Verdi Trail, and it's a beautiful walk through a suburban type neighborhood with nice sidewalks. And I would lose all that should she be redistricted. We would have to walk on the busy road, obviously, of Military Trail, which not only is it busier, but it's also 2.5 miles away as opposed to only about 1.5 miles. And I would give anything to be able to keep my walks home from school with my daughter. In addition to that, I brought up, I had originally thought of some of these same concerns about the splitting of the St. Andrews community in Colusa. That was just something that stood out to me that seems to be reiterated quite often here. So I just wanted to make aware that I was on board with those who feel that that's a disjointed way to kind of handle shuffling students over to the new school. I also have major questions about busing to the new school. Right now, Clara is within walking distance. And like I said, we do walk quite often home from school, but now, you know, will she have to get on the bus? And what does that mean in terms of the jobs that my husband and I have? Right now, it works out great. We're able to drop her off at school via car. We walk together often. Oops, I'm sorry, I went over time, but I really would appreciate if you guys would possibly put out a survey to the students who are proposed for redistricting from Verdi. And I would hope that if there's any possibility that you can grandfather in the current students who are at Verdi. Even though my daughter's just in kindergarten, she's already established roots, and she came home learning the word community the other day, and she feels part of the Verdi community. So I think there are many ways that we can find equitable solutions to keep our kids
Thank you, ma'am.
where we hoped for them to be. I'm sorry I went over. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, Dawn, are there any other speakers?
I think that's it. No more speakers.
So the ones we have not heard from are Seth Shepard, Nadia Barkova, Karen, according to my list, Karen Turpak, Jennifer Steelman, and Laura and Jake Weissman. They're not in the meeting?
No.
Okay.
There's a phone number here, 561-800-6660.
I don't see that on the list either, so
No, that came in later.
I don't.
And Chris had me improve it. So you want me to try to move that? Oh, you can't even move it as a panelist. It has to be a person.
You can't move that person over, even if I don't,
The phone number I can't move.
Okay. Well, if that person can hear, then I recommend providing written comments to public.comment@palmbeachschools.org. The ABC will receive those comments.
Yeah, so this is Patrick, to tail on to that, any of the comments that people have mailed in after, emailed the public comments after noon today, we will also provide all of those comments to the committee so that they have them to deliberate and look at again in any upcoming meetings as well. So fear not if you did provide any email comments past noon, that they are all still going to the committee.
Madam Chair, I guess that concludes the list.
Yes, we are back. We're back to the committee to the committee discussion and questions. Committee members, you have study 1 of ORC before you. And we have had community input, community discussion initially with time. What is your pleasure? I see a hand, Charmaine, and then I see Carla.
First, I want to thank all of the members of the committee and residents of each of these sects that came out and spoke and used your voice. Thank you for coming out and speaking on behalf of your community, your children, and the schools that they're attending. Secondly, I would like to, I think that transportation question will come later, or that answer will come later from transportation.
We can give it to you now.
I would like to point out, one of the speakers talked.
He's the transportation director.
Go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead, sir. I'll finish my comment. If you want to give it to me now, that's fine.
I thought I was off mute. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so the areas that would not be on buses are 319, 320, 324, and 325. There's some questions around the northern parts of 333A and 333B, because we have to verify if those would be listed as hazardous. But definitely the southern parts of 333A and 333B would also not get buses, would be on buses rather, sorry. And then the other areas that would receive buses for sure would be the 314, 315, 309, 308B, all would definitely have buses.
So those 4 SACs will for sure have buses.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other ones are questionable or
Right.
definitely enough.
And some of the questions surrounding the military trail crossing, that we expect that people would have some anxiety around that. But currently we do have crossing guards at Potomac and Military Trail for Don Estridge, and they have been crossing that road without issues so far. We do understand the anxieties though, but I just want to make sure we're transparent in providing the information.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to, thank you so much. So going back to my comments, I wanted to, for full transparency, wanted the committee to also know, not the committee, the community to know that the body that is before you did not come up with these boundary changes. These boundary changes were actually part of the staff that brought us to us. It's now up for us to do our due diligence, to listen to you, and then bring forth that recommendation to the board or through staff, to the board through staff. Then lastly,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I need to be clear on what you're saying about.
Because some of the committee members said that they don't know how we drew up these lines. We didn't, like we as in the committee members, we did not draw up these lines. We didn't come up with these particular, this particular study. We did not do that. Staff did that.
No, and you're absolutely right. This is, and that was the reason that staff made the presentation.
Correct.
At the very beginning. This study 1, and and we'll make sure that we go through the whole process. And it's also the reason that the study is actually numbered. For those of us who have been on this committee for some years, oftentimes when we deal with a process, we get well within the numbers. Sometimes they go into the 7s and 8s and 9s and 10s. So because every little change, the new study that comes back gets an elevated number. So you're absolutely right. Please, this study came to us because we have to have a beginning. We don't have a beginning, we don't have anything to discuss. And that's what this is, a beginning. So if we could start to move the process through this, and that's why the community input is so vital for us, so that we can make sure that it is a hand in hand. But no,
And
yes.
you couldn't have said it any better, but I just wanted to clarify that for the community members who did not get that clear. I wanted to make that point that this is the beginning. So you said it perfectly, Madam Chair. And then lastly, I wanted to ask the question. I think I lost my train of thought because I was so caught up with your explanation, and that was so good. I will pause, and when it comes to me, I'll raise my hands again, Madam Chair. But that was the main point that I wanted to make, just to clarify that point.
Thank you. And don't enter my age bracket. I'm the only elder on this. So you, all right, Carla, you're on.
I did have some questions, but I know typically you do have your spiel that you go to before you go around to all of us, and I don't want to interject and take up that time. So are we ready to go around to each one of us, or did you want to do your spiel? Okay,
No, you go ahead. I don't need to spiel.
Well, you've done this for so long, you do it so automatically. I didn't want to step over there and mess up the groove. I have a few concerns, and I know it's study one, and we're getting there, right? With Verdi and Addison Meiser, they're K-8s, right? And the projected moves are not to K-8s. And I didn't know what level of planning. I know a lot of work has gone into this. I'm not dismissing that, but I am questioning if that was a thought in the thought process of it all. I know, Palm Beach County creating K-8s was a big thing. And I know none of the parents mentioned it, and I read all of the emails that were actually sent to us prior to, and only one of them has mentioned it. So that was one of my concerns. And then another concern is understanding what programming we actually have for the new school. So we actually know really what kind of space you're dealing with, knowing that all of our Boca elementary schools are so packed. I thought that the community members that spoke were so elegant, and it was a little bit refreshing that I found that that students are going, or parents, families that are dealing with CLUSA, they're excited to go to the new school. In the past, being on this committee, nobody wanted to leave CLUSA. They were all so sold on it and embedded in it and invested in the school and the principal and the community. So I'm glad that they're open-minded about even the thought process of going to a new school. I think that's really refreshing. And I want to commend the district staff for all the work that they have done in sharing all that information. So the community has been informed all along. That was really nice to see this time. Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer the question regarding the K-8. Yeah, it's the two K-8s are unfortunately projected to be over enrolled, especially Verde and and Addison. So they need relief. There is one small area of Verde that we are moving to Verde K to Addison K-8. It's a small number, but some of those parents will have the opportunity to choose, and this was provided by Choice Department. So last year there were 166 fifth graders at Verde. I'm sure Mr. Moldovan can attest. The number of fifth graders attending Verde, that 166 who applied for first choice sixth grade, was 77, about 46%. So he did accept out of zone sixth graders. And then Addison Meisner. So there are a number of out of zone seats available for students that don't live in the Verde and Addison Meisner zone to apply and then attend those K-8s at the middle school level. Addison Meisner, 158 fifth graders. There were 110 seats allotted. Number of fifth graders attending Addison Meisner who applied first choice to sixth grade at Addison Meisner was 89 of that 158, or 56%. So they also had room to take in out of zone students. So, and we have one of the principals that can attest. I mean, he did accept, I'm assuming the numbers were incorrect. So out of zone students, in his middle school levels.
Your point is well taken, and you recall, Jason, a few minutes ago, we had a question from a parent about the address identifications, and sometimes these 2 points get intermingled. With that, I'll go to Virginia.
Thank you. Ah. My trigger finger is too fast on my buttons here. I was struck by quite a lot of the comments that were made by the public. And I hope I can remember some of these ideas that I had as they were talking, and as you just, Jason, gave us some of the out of boundary students that were attending some of the K-8 schools. So with that thought in mind, if that wasn't, if space wasn't allowed for these out of boundary students, would SAC 335 fit in Addison Meisner? That's number one question. Number two is I also wondered, and I think several of us, when we first got these studies, wondered why these numbers are so small. 318, 315, the one separated by St. Andrews Boulevard, 318. I think it would be really good if we could keep that community together. And someone from that area mentioned using Yamato Road as the cutoff to attend the new school, and then leave back in J.C. Mitchell. If you scroll the map up, leave 315 and then keep the top two, move them over to J.C. Mitchell. Would a boundary study such as that be a possibility?
Well, it's just in SAC 318, there are 109 students. That's a lot of kids to pull out of Calusa. So it's too many kids into O5C, too many students out of Calusa. So we would have to exchange that with another area.
Keep moving down from the north, from the three SACs, moving them over to J.C. Mitchell, and then keeping these students in the new school. Would a SAC, a study such as that, might that show us some good numbers?
Well, the only reason we're moving a SAC into J.C. Mitchell, it's 335 to relieve Addison Meisner.
Right, but you just told us that there are seats available for out of area students. If those were used for this, if those were used for this SAC instead, keeping your neighborhood there versus out of the neighborhood.
Well, those schools were built.
Jason, can I interject for a second? Because Virginia, I'd like to just to address what you talked about with out of boundary children to the choice program. Yes, we do keep a majority, at least I can speak for Verdi the last 2 years. Yes, we do keep a majority of those students are ours that were in 5th grade. But I think something that's made the choice program so special is the ability to have children from other schools come to be part of the 6th through 8th grade program. And we only have 6th and 7th grade now, but I think that that's part of the middle school experience. And I think that's part that makes at least Verdi K-8's choice program so desirable and also diverse, that children can be with each other we get a lot of children from Del Prado that would have gone to Boca Middle, or we get a lot of children from Calusa. Actually, we have a ton of children that were 5th graders last year at Calusa that instead of going to Omni chose to come to our choice program at Verdi K-8. So I just want to interject. I really think it's important that the K-8s have the ability to have choice students come from outside of their own zone.
I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate choice students, but when we're talking about taking students out of the school that are already there and consider that their community school, I think thought has to be given to what are the priorities, and whether that SAC, if it is moved, can then be given part of that choice, being allowed to be priority in the choice to attend that school. But anyway, I would like to see a study with the numbers, with these SACs moved, to see if we can't keep, and I don't know if we have to keep 313. Is that 313 also, is that also part of St. Andrews or not? Because they mentioned going from Yamato Road and south and keeping them at the new school. And then I would suggest taking the northern SACs and moving them over to J.C. Mitchell. And that's why I would move that 335 out of J.C. Mitchell back down to Meisner.
Well, but J.C. Mitchell doesn't need relief, Virginia. It's Addison Meisner needs relief. We're doing this because Addison Meisner is projected at over 100% if we don't do anything. So that's why we need to shift students out of
Then you can very easily move those 3 SACs in the northern area over to J.C. Mitchell.
Well, I don't, instead of which, 335?
And then keep 330. Oh, can you make those numbers bigger?
The only problem is that we don't provide sufficient relief for Addison Meisner, and they will go over. And,
I'm not touching Addison Meisner right now, all right? You said J.C. Mitchell doesn't need relief. So move the top 3 northern SACs that are slated for the new school and move them into J.C. Mitchell and keep 315 in J.C. Mitchell. So you'd have those 4 SACs, and then you'd have room below Yamato.
So shift students from Calusa to J.C. Mitchell.
Yeah, no, those that right there.
Right.
Okay,
They're currently zoned for Calusa.
All right.
They're currently in the Calusa zone. So they
okay, but you have them slated to go to the new school.
Correct.
So move them to J.C. Mitchell.
So
and
instead
314 too, if you need to keep enough space to keep that whole Spanish St. Andrews Boulevard students together as a neighborhood. I just like to see the numbers.
Can I say something?
Yes, Charmaine, yes.
A lot of kids in the
first, let me just give that respect to Miss Virginia. Virginia, are you done?
I guess I can come back later. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to comment on what you're saying. First, I like Carla said, I have also read every email, and I actually live in Boca and have driven the area, and I'm going to tomorrow drive the areas that where the community have had the most vocalized issues. I'm going to do another drive around that community. But when you look at that area, although it looks like those communities are together, there's major highways that separate those communities. So I hear what Jason is saying, and I hear what you're saying as well. We just have to be mindful that that area, that airport road, how it looks very tricky. Unless you come to Boca and drive that area, it looks like everything is combined and everything is together. That's not necessarily how it is if you come here to Boca. So I wanted to just make that point there.
Okay. I don't know where, I never mentioned Airport Road. I don't consider that as part of what I was talking about.
The Congress Avenue, the 308, the 309.
I was talking about St. Andrews Boulevard.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about the northern ones.
The northern, yeah. Those
okay,
are not
well,
all combined.
All right, they already have to cross 95, 309 already has to cross in order to go to Calusa. Right. So,
but I did have
between making 308.
Go ahead, and then Scott, and then Carla, and then Kathy, and then Karen. Go ahead.
Okay, what was the 334? And I may have missed it. I'm trying to scroll up on my screen and pay attention to the presentation, to the screen that's on before me. 334. How many members was on this set? How many students are in that particular SAC 334, Jason? Does it look like a lot of the kids that are going to O5C and a lot of the communities that are geared towards O5C are predominantly affluent communities. And when we talk about, diversity, I just want to make sure we're really being diverse with this school. But 334
contains 123 students that attend JC.
Okay.
It's a lot of
Thank
kids.
you thank you very much. I just want to make sure we're being very diverse and how about 326? And that is all, Madam Chair, for me.
326, that's around the airport area. That's not it.
Correct.
Actually, there's no students in there. It's really airport, some businesses, no kids.
Okay. Scott,
We have to,
Carla.
every area of Palm Beach County has to be assigned to a zone regardless if it has kids or not, but there are no students in that. Zach.
Right. That's that boomer, sir. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, Scott.
Thank you. Can you see me now and hear me? Can you hear me?
Takes me a minute. I can
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Hear you.
We
can see and hear
Go
you.
ahead, Scott.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you all very much. First, I wanted to thank every member of the public who participated. We, as Ms. Postel said a few comments ago, we did not draw this map. The school district has worked very hard to try to come up with a map. There's nothing that will be perfect. And part of this process is to evaluate all of the wonderful concerns and important concerns that have been raised. And I know district staff will be working on them. We've heard some issues here. Just to speak to the idea that Ms. Farace and another caller were speaking about earlier about a north-south divide on Yamato Road. I think Ms. Postel made some points, and if you know Boca, the geography does not lay out very well to treat it Yamato north and south. I think that would create a number of greater problems than some of just the geography and the traffic of what we have now. I'm sensitive again to the parents on 324 who feel that they're being separated from 318 and 313, the west side of St. Andrews. That's another reason why Yamato Road work. If you can't fit in the west side of St. Andrews neighborhoods in 318 over in 05C, expanding them further to include 313 would only exacerbate that problem. But I will ask the school district to, give consideration, as I said, they would be about the availability of busing for 324. There was the comment made that Don Estridge, people walk with a crossing guard at Military Trail. This school is set back further though. It's set back quite a distance further back. So I think that concept of walking, the walkability is not the same. And that may be why more busing is necessary. And finally, just, in an effort, I'll ask the district, I know they try to do this, the policy to keep fourth graders to be able to continue in that school. I don't know if tweaking the numbers on third graders perhaps includes more people who can finish out their term and maintain those relationships. This is a challenging situation, but I appreciate every comment I've gotten and I appreciate everyone's time and we'll work through this. Thank you.
Okay, Carla.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood Virginia. So was she thinking of, and her idea, was she thinking of including 313, which is a 255 students? Did I understand her right? Or was she just looking at 318?
318.
So
I was just mentioning that someone had talked about Yamato Road as the cutoff, but I think at the minimum, I would like to see the SAC that it's immediately, I guess it's 318, right next to 324.
With
To
the 109.
find a study that might be able to keep them by moving some of the northern SACs into JC Mitchell, who has room. That was my just my thought as I was listening to everybody.
So your thoughts were, when you say the northern SACs, you're referring to 308B and 309? Is that correct?
Jason, can you enlarge that map? You can see the numbers.
Sure. In the north, yep.
Yeah, 308B, 309, keep 315 and JC Mitchell. And then if there still aren't enough numbers, how would 314 figure into it? Can that be split at the Congress Avenue bisect?
Yeah, 309 is a huge SAC. There's 150 kids in there. Huge. So
that may be all we need to keep in JC Mitchell in order to let 318 move to the new school.
well, So it's moving a Calusa SAC into J.C. Mitchell. Something we can look at.
Is that something? Okay.
I'm sorry, are you, Jason, did you say that she means to move it into J.C. Mitchell or leave it at Calusa? I'm sorry.
She said, from what I gather, she's saying moves Calusa 309, which is currently zoned for Calusa, shift them to J.C. Mitchell.
Oh, I thought she was saying leave them at Calusa.
No, no,
Okay.
that would, because we still need to give Calusa relief.
Oh, I agree. Okay.
And
In
J.C.
fact,
Mitchell has room, and that might make
315
enough room for 318.
Which is 109.
Okay, as we start to move this process along, and there are a number of hands. That Virginia is proposing the possibility of another study. Let me rewind for everyone. As we move forward, we are scheduled to have a second meeting on January 13th. So in essence, what we're doing is thinking in terms of an agenda. Jason worked with me on this. Is the committee, do we want to say we would take study 1 out to the community for additional comments? Or are we saying we want to deal with another study that would come back to the boundary committee for additional comments and all, or studies? So as we start to work through this discussion for the balance of the meeting, think in terms of what direction we want to go, how we want to go as a committee. We are a boundary committee. We give recommendations to the superintendent, and from there, the superintendent takes it from that. With that, I'll go to Kathy and Karen, and I'll see. I'm sorry, Carla, were you finished? I apologize.
No.
If you haven't, then after you, it will be Kathy and Karen.
Well, I was actually, I wanted to make a motion for a second study, but I'll let everyone else speak.
Okay, then apparently that's the direction. I think you hear Virginia and Carla saying those particular things, Kathy, and then Karen.
Yeah, thank you. And I really do also appreciate all the input. I did read all of the public comments that were posted, so I got a very good feeling for how passionate some of these folks are about this. And, you know, it did hit a chord with me. So I also, as all of this was being uncovered during the speaking, had the same thought as Virginia, that it didn't really make sense if you do look at this stair-step sort of map, why we're stretching something out. If we could, consolidate the areas a little better and do that study to try to include the 318 and even maybe 313, depending on what else gets shifted up north, to keep it rather than a long, narrow stretch. And I get the concern that the parents have that their kids are going to go to school with other kids, three exits down 95 later, up the road, 5 miles away. It doesn't really make sense. So I'm just saying I'm in favor of looking at keeping 318, if possible 313, and then, shaving some up the north. And I really didn't understand why 315 was ever being moved from J.C. Mitchell, because J.C. Mitchell didn't seem to have a problem with overcrowding. So I'm not sure why we were even ever touching that.
Karen.
Unmute here.
And Scott.
Okay, I'm Jason, you did an awesome job on this, and I'm cognizant of all the constraints and trying to make all the pieces and parts and numbers fit. The pieces that we now have to deal with is putting in the human piece to it, the parents and the kids. The one little boy, I don't know if there's can be a concession made for him. The father spoke, I can't recall, was it 335? The little boy is going to have severe anxiety with change. Does the school allow for some accommodation to be made for someone like that? Or is it everybody's got to go? That's one question, but we do want to keep that St. Andrews neighborhood together. I can, coming from a neighborhood growing up, it is important. I'm having trouble with my mind. I'm looking at the sacks and looking at the spaces here, but the numbers, as Virginia's talking about moving things around, we're not taking into account the numbers either. I mean, I can print this out and take the little tab, the spreadsheet that has the numbers on there and draw them into these. But is that something, Jason, that the entire committee would be find useful for each of the SACs? How many kids are actually involved? So when we look and say, well, let's just move this over here, we know how many we're talking about, and we know that we're moving a problem and creating another problem somewhere else.
Yeah, that's part of the study.
Yeah.
If you scroll down, we show how many kids reside.
Yeah, I know, but I'm looking at this and I'm trying to move things around, and then I'm trying to jot down. Then I'm looking down here at the numbers and I'm going back up.
Actually put the numbers on the map, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, that'll be helpful.
Okay.
And
And
it's
to
gonna be
answer
confusing.
Kathy's question, the reason we're moving 315 out of J.C. Mitchell is because Addison Meisner is going to need relief. They're not going to be able to stay under 100% unless we move, and that's 100 students out. So 100 students was too much into JC, so we needed to move JC. At the same time, we have a brand new school we need to load, and this provided a nice piece of that loading for the new school. So that's the reason why we moved 315. It was contiguous. There's 80 students in there, so that was the reasoning why we did that.
The other piece that I found compelling was, how do you explain to the parents that you're going to move their child from a high rated school to a much lower rated school? That's a valid concern as a parent.
Based on the Florida Department of Education, all these schools are A-rated based on the last rating. They're all A-rated schools. So I'm not sure what metrics they were using, but they're all A-rated schools.
So we're not changing this from one rated to another.
The last rating provided by Florida Department of Education, no, they're all A-rated.
Okay.
The last grades that were released, J.C. Mitchell, Addison Meisner, Verde, Caluso, all A schools.
Okay, so we can take that right off the.
So I'm not sure what some of these.
Karen, she was using a community, like a parent graded system, just a FYI, that parent was using a community graded system. It's not Department of Education or something like that.
No, that was what I was curious about.
And, just another key point, these two schools, Calusa and O5C, are only about 2.5 miles away.
Yeah.
So, it's very close. So you've got, and Calusa needs the majority of the relief. So, to create a zone, otherwise you're going to pull too far west, grab a lot of these kids right next to Calusa. So, it's when you have two schools that close, you really have to go sack by sack, bit by bit, and see where you can pull the students without pulling too many students that are right next to all these schools, because they are rather close together. So, they're close. A little over 2 miles away is not that far for two elementary schools.
And that 109 students from 318 is going to put the new school over?
Yes, we'd have to look at, we'd have to look at removing, looking at another SAC from Calusa to remain at Calusa. That's really the only way to.
Which comes back to Virginia's point.
Possibly, possibly SAC 314, possibly 308B and 309 combined are a lot of kids. So we would have to, if 318 goes to O5C, we need to look at moving a SAC out of O5C back to Calusa. So just be swapping out SACs.
Yeah.
Students. And I'm very well aware there's students within these SACs, but when I say SACs, I mean, those students.
We had Scott and then David.
Well, Madam Chair, I just want to make sure, does anyone else have their hand raised? I spoke 3 people ago and I was a rejoinder comment, but I don't want to step over if anyone else has their hand raised. Can we just make sure? I can't see everyone, so.
I saw your hand and I saw David. Oh, and I see Yvette, but I just saw her. And Kathy's is back up again, but
had my
Some of the
hand up.
people are raising their hands again.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
had my
trying
hand
to-
up, but I can wait until it's my turn to.
Yeah,
offer
I said
people to say.
David.
Okay, very good. I'll wait. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll just be brief, but I don't want to tramp over you. Called me, Madam Chair. I appreciate some of these suggestions, but I think we're getting far afield. And as Ms. Postel raised before, there are a lot of issues. Moving 309 to JC Mitchell and 314 to JC Mitchell to move 318 to 05C is moving 3 SACs away from school, schoolmates that they haven't been before with. It's moving 2 into a brand new school where they didn't have to be moved instead of to 05C, just to accommodate 318. 313, the numbers are not going to work, unfortunately, it seems like. And I don't want to dispel this concept of this St. Andrews Boulevard neighborhood. It is a series of 8 neighborhoods, and living very close to there, I know the close interconnected relationships, but I don't think we can think effectively of all those 3 to 4 different SACs as one single neighborhood. It would not work. I get we have to draw a boundary somewhere. That's why I appreciate trying to raise 318, but if you're going to have to move 309, 314 and others to get there, it's very far afield. And the last thing I wanted to note, sorry, there's a little background noise. Just give me a moment, please. Part of the reason for the motivation for the school and the city's donating this land was to make sure that Boca students could stay in Boca schools. Because in the last redistricting, 309 and I believe 308B were presumed to go over to Delray Beach outside of everything. To move 309, part of what we were looking to do is make sure that the northern communities could be accommodated. So singling out 309 when they were planning to go to 05C, that was always kind of what was in the minds. I think it's just another step to create an issue. The last point too, I've heard plenty of comments from 324 residents in Mill Pond and Timber Creek. And I would feel very similarly. I've not heard concerns from 318 students in the 4 communities there. And I think if they weren't planning on moving them just because they're sister communities to the east may not be the most availing reason for them, that will take heart, because they are separated by St. Andrews Boulevard as opposed to Mill Pond and Timber Creek, which are there. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just on 318. Moving all the northern sections beyond this plan is not the best idea, in my opinion, for a number of reasons. Thank you.
David, and then Yvette. And then
Thank you very much, Ms. Beckton.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, there was a Madam Chair.
That was me.
Who?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate per policy, the policy states we should not splitting individual subdivisions should be avoided. And in this case, we are not splitting any individual subdivisions. I mean, the St. Andrews, it's a community, but they're not, these are separate individual multiple subdivisions on either side of the road. So I just want to clarify, we are not splitting individual subdivisions in this study. They are all, these individual subdivisions per policy are remaining together. Thank you.
Okay, my input's going to be brief. In large measure, I totally support what's proposed here. I also would like to reiterate what a lot of good commentary came before my speaking just now. I think Mayor Singer's made some excellent points. I agree with him. You solve one problem, you create another, and then it's just a matter of when you finally stop moving things around to where you eventually pay attention to those who make the loudest noise, and then the others that don't, or maybe feel marginalized, then feel ignored. So we've got to be careful about following procedures, following the guidelines we've got. I think Mr. Link has done an excellent job, him and his team. And I know how difficult this is from an inside basis. I've been part of this process many times. I think that what they've got proposed will work. Change is hard, it always is. And as long as we can be mindful of trying to, as Jason has just reiterated, keep communities together, that's really the best we can do when we create these things. So with that, I'll stand down, but I did want to reiterate one thing. When the one mom threw out this data of 7 out of 10 and 8 and 9 out of 10, I know the source she's speaking of. It's absolutely, to my understanding, without any scientific evidence whatsoever to support these assertions. So when you go to school, things like greatschools.com and so forth, oftentimes you have malcontent or very excited parents that pitch in. Does that measure a school success? I would have to say, no, it doesn't. And so I'm glad we're going back to saying, Are these A schools? What are they? Jason's addressed that. I support what we have so far. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yvette?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I first wanted to thank all of our residents that spoke today. And I think I share sentiments with a lot of the folks on this line. In terms of change is really hard. My first priority is having city kids in our city schools, keeping our Boca kids in our Boca schools. And 5 years ago, I was one of those parents. I was a Calusa parent. My children went to Calusa and we faced those kind of challenges. So I agree with Mayor Scott Singer. Making changes to other SACs right now would just cause a ripple effect for other areas. I think we would just be changing one thing for the other. So I'm definitely not in favor of that. And then we would have to look at what children are going into our schools that do not live, in Boca Raton. And that's a whole other thing that we dealt with, 5 years ago. I think we have amazing schools, A-rated schools. We're changing kids from one school to another school. And I understand, trust me, I have children myself, that it's really hard to move these kids around. But, our goal is to keep Boca Raton kids or students in Boca Raton schools. And we have a brand new school in 05C, which is going to be, an amazing principal, great technology, great programming. So I think we need to, stay open mind. I appreciate all the input. I welcome all the input. Keep sending it our way. I have no issues with the feedback or having the conversations. I just feel like we need to be open-minded when it comes to those of us that are upset about the changes, because we are trying to do what's in the best interest for the whole. And I wanted to thank Jason and his group because the committee did not decide on these boundary changes. And as you can see, if you move one SAC, the other one gets affected. If you move this one, the other one gets inbound. This is not an easy choice for us either. And I can speak for myself. I'm very torn, especially that these are, our residents. These are the people that some of you I actually know. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And we understand, and I totally feel what you're going through. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kathy, and then Stephen.
Just a quick question. How many students are in 324?
Okay, let me give that a quick.
And notwithstanding what was just said, which I also don't disagree with, and thank you, Jason. I didn't mean to suggest you didn't do a fabulous job on this.
I know.
Change is hard and it may be necessary, but if one of the concerns of the folks in 324 is that they want to be with 318, did we consider not moving 324 to the new school and adding one of the other contiguous SACs up north?
So SAC 324 contains 134 K-5 students that attend Calusa. Total K-5 residing is 175, 134, or about 77% attend Calusa. So it's one of the larger SACs that would be attending 05C.
So up north in I can't see it right now, 308A, how many is that?
308A is 41 students.
Oh, okay.
It's a small SAC. It's 309 is the biggie. That's 150 kids that attend Calusa.
Okay.
I think that is the largest SAC, I believe, sending SAC to, got the wrong mouse, to 05C aside from, that would be the biggest. 309 is the biggest. That would be the most kids to 05C.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Stephen. And then Seth, Principal Seth. Stephen, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate all the comments from community, from the efforts from staff. I'm involved in other committees and boards in different parts of the county government and so forth. And I enjoy public service. I've read all the comments. I've read all the material that was submitted. And I definitely support Mayor Sanders' comments and David's comments earlier that if strictly analytical perspective, looking at how this lays out and whether it's a stair step or 3 exits on the interstate exits are close together. I have a major thoroughfare in front of my home in Wellington, State Highway 441, State Road 7, that bisects part of the community, and where it's appropriate, the closer kids go to the closer school. Zoning sometimes has to be uncomfortable, and SACs may move, but the community still exists the same way. I still have the same temples and mosques and churches across the street. We still go to the same publics and banking institutions, and where our kids interact isn't going to change who they go to school with. My kids involved in rec basketball and flag football in the area, and that sense of community is developed in the school as well as through extracurricular activities. And I just think that I put a lot of confidence and faith in Principal Seth and the new facilities that are coming to O5C, and I'd support the study as it's laid out unless something better was demonstrated. Thank you.
And Principal Seth has his hand up. Then I'll go to Roseanne and then Charmaine and Yvette, you have your hand up again.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
well,
thank you. Madam
yes,
Chair, thank you very much. And I appreciate the committee taking their time. I appreciate all the public comments. I'm vested in this community. I have been for a lot of years, but I want to piggyback what Stephen just talked about. I am skilled in building community. I'm good at it. And no matter what communities, no matter what children, no matter what families come to this new school, I can assure you, the committee and our families that are watching at home, that we will build a positive community at O5C. Verticade has received the highest state level award called the Resiliency Award for our positive behavior support, which ties in what we do with our community, how we treat our children, how our staff works with our children. So I just want the committee to know, and I want our families out there to know, I do understand as a father that has a child in the Palm Beach County schools, how important it is where your child goes to school, but I am skilled in building community. I have a vision of bringing these communities together so that we can work on building traditions that are at their schools to the new school. But I really felt that it was important for the committee to hear that and to ensure our parents out there that will be coming to the new school at some point, that a community will be built and it will be strong and it will be positive.
Roseanne and then Charmaine.
Good evening. I commend staff, Jason and the rest of the staff, for what they brought forth to us, and particularly in light of what I'm hearing as far as some of the guidelines that they've been given. But I am troubled a bit, and I guess I'd like a little bit of clarification. I've been on this ABC for almost from the beginning. Spent a little time on the compliance monitoring committee that led up to the formation of the ABC. But I'm hearing some things this evening that take me further than this particular study, because it appears that the guidelines for studies drawing boundaries have changed significantly, unless it's just for this particular study that those guidelines are in place. And those guidelines deal with, I wish I had $1 for every time in community input meeting and other meetings we have said to concerned parents, we don't have municipal schools in Palm Beach County. We have said that. That has been our marching orders for a long time. And I know, I understand the personalities on this committee now. I understand that. But I'm troubled. I'm even troubled by the letter that we were given from the superintendent of schools, who now appears to have changed the rules, that perhaps we do have a system of municipal schools in Palm Beach County. I was told over and over and over again, and we have told parents over and over again, that is not true. But, and I understand that the city of Boca Raton donated the land, but I've heard that when developers were told, yeah, you may be making a donation and you want to do this or do that, but we don't have a system of municipal schools in Palm Beach County. So I know COVID took us away for a while, so did I miss that change? That now we have a system and the boundary committee is operating under those guidelines, because the superintendent of schools told this committee, do not consider. Unfortunately, we're not facing that. And I understand why, because if you told the committee don't consider it, certainly staff is under those same restraints. Do not consider any boundary that takes Boca Raton children outside of Boca Raton. Have the rules changed to that extent, or is it just for this study?
I don't mind being put on the spot. I've been there before. I read very carefully the policy that this committee has to follow. And the word that summarizes the policy is still capacity. And so as we look at the study, we still need to address the capacity and make sure that the capacity as it relates to any study is appropriate. As some of the speakers have said, that is not always going to be the easiest thing to do. And in this particular study, it's going to be the very same situation. As we move forward and address the issue of capacity in these different schools, fortunately not Whispering Pines, that's not on our plate. So let's not even, since they didn't give it to us, let's not take it. But as it relates to all of the other schools, capacity is number one for this committee. And so therefore, that is what we have to address. So as we move and as we start to have some other discussions, that is what we have to do. We are always going to get auxiliary comments, and that is what has happened. But as we look at this policy, that is what we need to be got. That's our marching orders. With that, I saw Scott hand first. I saw Carla, and then I saw Charmaine.
Madam Chair, I feel like an answer to my question, though.
I thought
Madam
I
Chair,
answered it. Wait a minute.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, I rose to speak to Ms. Brown's question, which is
and that's fine. That's fine.
Every single one of the SACs being discussed and every single one of the schools being discussed is within the city limits of Boca Raton. So while there were ancillary comments about what might have happened 5 years ago, that issue is not before us in any way, because there's no question about whether someone is in or outside, inside or outside. Literally everything discussed is within the city limits. So we needn't reach that philosophical question today, whether or not there's a change. It's not before us because there's nothing being discussed. Thank you.
Carla and then Charmaine.
Charmaine had her hand up before I did.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for noticing that, Charmaine, and then Carla. That's not the way it came up on my screen, but hey.
That's okay. I wanted to be honest.
I appreciate it. I do. Go ahead, Charmaine, and then Carla.
I think Principal Seth covered all of the points that I wanted to add on, and you ended off with that capacity. As far as community, when we look at it, there's no right answer. There's no right way. We're not going to get it. We could have 10 studies and we still not going to have everybody satisfied. So I do respect this study that was brought before us. I do believe that there are some tweaks because I live in Boca Raton, because I know the city and I've been here pretty much all my life. I do know that that one area of concern, 324, is something that, like I said, I'll drive that area just to be sure. But I wanted to touch on what Seth said with community. We build our community. And sometimes when we talk about, another school is better than the other school. I have been in Boca Raton all my life. My kids go to Boca Raton schools, and I play with kids from Addison Meisner to Del Prado to Boca Raton Elementary. And I live in a total different SAC than half of these individuals that I play with. So you make your community. You make your community outside the schools. You make your community in the schools. And we just got to be mindful. What this committee is focused on is just what Madam Chair said, capacity. We're not focused on who. We're looking at capacity and staff when they do their studies. I'm sure that I would hope, and I have confidence, the best model, the best thing for those particular SACs at individual schools. So I respect the study. Other than that 324, I do want to take a look at that area. And that's where I want to say we make our own communities. So let's decisions that are before us, but we have to make a decision. And we always talk about capacity. And when it comes to certain parents, certain communities, and certain families coming before us, we navigate away from making a decision because a group of people typically will come before us and speak the loudest. We have to make a decision with capacity. And we have to relieve those students at Calusa, just like we got to do it at Boca High, but that's another story. But we need to take care of Calusa at this very moment, and pretty soon Addison Meisner and Verdi right behind. We just got to deal with the capacity issue, and that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to throw out to my fellow committee members a motion of coming back with a second study. And I would like to look at, I'm still concerned with moving families from a K-8 to a K school. I can't get it out of my head. I'm still concerned about it. I would like to look at the numbers, or have the district look at the numbers, and looking at if those K-8s were not choice, if they were actually true SAC schools. I'd also, within that, like to look at taking SAC 318, which is currently 109 enrolled students at Calusa, and moving them to the new school with 308B and 309, 308B, which is 23, and 309, which is 147 current students, of leaving them at Calusa, and looking at those numbers and seeing how many of them are actually fifth graders. And I mean, how many would they be losing out of those numbers just to begin with, because Calusa is only a K-5. So
Carla, can we get him to, I'm sorry, Jason, can you mark that so we can follow what Carla is saying? I'm sorry, it's kind of hard.
I'm sorry, I am so OCD. I printed all this out and I've been marking it up as everyone's been talking. Am I going too fast, Jason? I'm sorry.
No, so
I've typed it down. I've typed it down.
318 to 05C and 308B and 3089 remain at Calusa.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, with 309 with 147, and then 308B has 23. So between those three SACs is a 61 student difference. So if we actually look at those 61s and actually break it down of, well, would they have would half of those 61 have left already?
Carla, you're making a motion, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute. So your motion is, let's get the motion out there first.
Okay, so the motion would be to come back with a study 2 or study 1A, however Jason likes to do it, with SAC 318 being moved to the new school, and SAC 308B and 3089 staying at Calusa. Within that study, I would like to look.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. You're second. There's a second by Virginia, but you had a caveat, Carla.
Well, I wanted the district team to look at the K-8 schools and actually see what our numbers would actually be with removing the choice programs from them and leaving. When families move to K-8, that's what they wanted. That's what the district spent all this time and money and energy in, so they would stop going to private schools and other schools. I would really like to look hard at that. I feel bad that.
Okay, Jason, help us with this motion. There is a motion and it has been seconded. And there is a tagline to it. So the motion is to move 318 to the new school, 309. And what? They stay at Calusa.
309, 308B, 309. I do have to state those two SACs combined have more kids entering Calusa than we would be removing out of Calusa. And Calusa, remember, O5C built for 1,000 kids, the core 1,000 kids. So now we're moving kids out of O5C into Calusa, into a school that's, whose core is very stressed. So, we'd have to look at the grade breakdown, but it's, 60, around 60 students.
Yes,
out of O5C into Calusa. So it's more out of O5C into Calusa.
Carla, what about 313? Because if you leave 313 and not move that in, you're leaving that completely by itself unless you're moving 313.
Right, it's 255 students. When you look at the aerial map, that is a very condensed community. So it looks small on, in the little purple map, but this community is very condensed with houses.
How many students are in 314?
$128.
And just know that we have future development coming online in 314 in the future.
Yes, this SAC has, there are some newer multifamily residences in that SAC that have actually added, almost doubled in enrollment at Calusa. So we decided to shift that SAC to O5C to accommodate that additional growth.
You factor that into the additional growth for O5C, yes?
Absolutely.
And SAC 309 has some additional growth as well.
And 315 that you were going to move into the new school, if that stated J.C. Mitchell in the new study?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Okay, the motion before, there's a motion before you. It has been moved and properly second. Any other discussion?
Yes,
Madam
I'd
Chair.
like to. I had my hand up for a while.
I'm sorry, then, and go ahead, and then Scott, at Virginia, and then Scott.
Thank you. I've listened to everyone, and I can appreciate those of you with the ties to Boca. And I know that there's probably a lot more going on in your heads than we who are not familiar with Boca can know or appreciate. But I think if you, in addition, if I need to amend the motion to look at 315, as to whether to keep that at J.C. Mitchell, if that also creates the space to move 318 into the new school while keeping those two northern SACs at Calusa, whether that's an amended part or an A and a B for a new study, but to look at those possibilities.
Virginia, the reason why I did not include those in the motion I made up is I wanted them to look at the K-8s, and if keeping the students that are at a K-8, if that is not possible and they're going to have to make a change, then at least the J.C. Mitchell students are going to another K-5. I wanted to leave it open to where if we could keep those K-8 kids in a K-8, that we would be, serving them better. Was my
Okay.
mindset.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, Scott.
Well, thank you. And maybe if I may yield for a question to Ms. Donaldson, I'm not quite grasping how your particular motion on 308B, 309, and 318 addresses the K-8 issue, because all the schools we're talking about are K-5s. Could I yield for a question and then have the floor back, please, Madam Chair?
Yes, you can. Sure.
Certainly. So my motion was for those to be moved. I want them to look at, so I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what the grades. Jason shared the percentages of students that are participating in the program for the choice. So I don't know what the numbers are regarding the choice. So I would want to look at the K-8s to see, excuse me, of how many of those students are there a choice. How would those schools be impacted if they weren't choice, if they were SAC schools? Parents choose K-8 for a reason. You move to a neighborhood with K, they lobbied the board for a K-8 for a reason. I don't want to take a K-8 away from a neighborhood without putting a lot of thought into it.
So if I'm understanding you, the only area that would be affected by going from K-8 to K-5 is 335. Is the point of your proposed plan to deal with 335?
No, it would actually be 333A, 333B, 335, and 315. That involves a lot.
Oh.
We've got 3 SACs that are currently in a K-8 school that would be going to a K-5 school.
I see. So your motion is really, I think we ought to spell it out then, that you're moving, it's not in the abstract. You want to look at 5 SACs, 308B, 309.
No, sir. I want to know what those numbers are. We don't know. So my motion, I thought was simple. My motion is to come back with another study, right? Which would include 318 going to the new school. SAC 308B and 309 staying at Calusa. Within that, I would like the district team to come back with more information on the K-8 schools. Because right now we just got percentages. I don't know how many, are actually choice. I don't know what the enrollment is. Verdi AP mentioned, or principal mentioned that it's only 6-7 right now in their K-8 program. So we need more information to even be able to think that way. And we don't have that yet. So I don't want to include that in a motion without all the information.
All right, thank you. If I may respectfully suggest, and maybe it won't, maybe an amendment to the motion won't be seconded, but I think we do better to divide those 2 questions up separately, because they're 2 related questions, but they're 2 separate questions. And maybe it's just as simple, rather than doing a whole study, is there a possibility of getting in from just the simple answer on the question you posed, Ms. Donaldson, of the K-8 numbers without doing the other study? And I'll leave that as an open question, Madam Chair, for anyone who can answer, please. Thank you.
I need to ask the maker and the seconder, because there was a motion was seconded that the 318 would go to the new school, and that 308A and 309 would remain at Calusa, and it was seconded. So that was a motion. Then in terms of some comments Carla made as it related to the K-8 program, but the motion was clear. So whether or not someone wants to amend, someone wants to do whatever, but there is only one motion in place, and that is it.
And that's why I jumped in right away to second it, because that's a clear study. And the other is information that we want to obtain. And I did still have my hand up, so I will continue with my thought process.
Sure.
As I said, I understand and recognize that those who live in that area may have other ideas and shares. I don't know whether they want to share any more of that with us, or if you felt you've done enough. I also agree with Roseanne. We've always been told they are not municipal schools. We are county schools. So I just wanted to reinforce that statement. And the third point I wanted to make is to remind the committee that calling for future studies is a very common part of the process. This is not something we're trying to throw any kind of monkey wrench into what staff has presented. We have often gone to many, many studies because we appreciate everybody's comments and we want to get it right for the sake of the students. So this is very, very common to call for another study. At the end, this study could still be the one that goes forward. Just because another study is called for, it doesn't mean that that's the one that you go with. That could be amended again, or we could all go back and say, yeah, staff, you did a brilliant job, Jason, and we're going to stay with this study. But we do have these concerns, and I would really hope the committee would support looking at another study. If it requires another Zoom meeting before, because of timelines, so be it. I'd be open to that. Thank you.
I see Charmaine's hand.
I think Mayor Scott actually touched on my point that I was actually going to ask, because I wanted a little bit of clarification from Carla as well with the 309, 308. I heard her ask about the question. She questioned how many. So I wanted, before we made that motion, if staff can tell us those numbers. I mean, before we voted on that motion, if staff could tell us those numbers that she had, so we could be better versed on what we're voting on.
So SAC 308 has 109 students. SAC 308B has 23. SAC 309 is 147. So that would be a difference of 61 students. Out of that 61 students, they all could be 61 kindergartners. I have no clue. They could be 50 fifth graders and leaving anyway. They could be 50 fourth graders and be allowed to stay at CLUSA. We don't know, right? So, but the difference is 61.
Okay. The motion is before you. The motion is to move the 318, SAC 318 to the new school. And you've heard about 308, 309 staying at Calusa. With that, please get ready for everyone. There are a couple of hands. If you could make sure your hands are not up, because we're going to ask you to raise your hand if you are in favor of this motion. I see a hand up.
Charmaine, is that, if everyone can begin with their hands
down,
their digital hands down. Charmaine, are you there?
Is she there? Charmaine.
Maybe she's frozen.
And maybe, because she was kind of going in and out a little while ago. You know how she was like a static.
Hmm.
So it might be. Okay, we'll, I don't know what to do. I'm not IT-ish. Okay, we'll wing it. Let's see what happens. Okay, all of those in favor of this motion, because that wouldn't mean this would be another study. Would you please raise your hand for the reaction? And staff, would you please count? Okay.
Not including Charmaine, I'm counting 3.
All right.
Is that correct?
That's what I'm seeing.
I see 4.
Okay, yes, I see. Yes, I see 3. What? Yeah, I see 4. I see 4.
Cynthia, I don't know. I kind of got cut off, and I don't know if you heard the ending of my question.
We didn't hear you at all because we were talking about your hand being up.
Oh,
we
I'm
didn't hear
so
you.
sorry. I was trying to speak and it just wouldn't let me speak. I was asking if with this proposal that the committee member proposed, Carla proposed, was this a concern or was this something, a recommendation that any member of the community brought forth? That was the question that I had before I raised my hands or made a decision.
Carla,
I don't understand your question.
Carla, you muted.
I'm sorry. Again, you thought I would get that down pat. Yes. The emails that we received from Jason, the first stack, then we got another stack of the, update of them. Yes, several of them were in there.
To move 3089, like the same way that you
318. It was regarding 318.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, the 309, 308, 30. Those the 318, I wasn't concerned about that. The top part, that's what I was asking about.
Yeah, no, ma'am.
Was that something you just wanted, the 309?
I was trying to balance out and keep as less kids moving as possible.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. With that, the motion is before you. If you could please lower your hands so we can take the vote. Okay, all of those in favor of that motion, would you please raise your hand?
Patrick, why don't you go ahead and read out the names so we're sure.
Okay, I have Ms. Roseanne Brown. I have Miss Carla Donaldson. I have Miss Virginia Faris. And I have Miss Kathy Salvador. And where is she? And that's it. That's all I have.
Okay.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. If you would please lower your hands. For all of those of you that are opposed, please raise your hand.
Second. Okay, I have Miss Becton is a no. Going down the list here. I don't see anything from Miss Drucker. Miss Gribble, don't see.
Now here, so we've got Mayor Singer, Chair Becton, Dr. Samori, Mr. Levin, and Councilmember Lithgow. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2,
Am I
3,
missing someone?
4.
6. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Mr. Levin, Dr. Samori, Chair Becton, Mayor Singer. I missed Charmaine. Sorry, Charmaine.
Yes.
And Charmaine. That makes 6 is what I count. 6
Okay,
no's.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those with the no, I have is Ms. Becton, Mr. Levin, Ms. Lithgow, Mr. Samori, Mayor Singer, and that's it. And Ms. Postal is being no's. So 6 no's.
The motion has failed.
Councilwoman Drucker is a no as well. I don't know if you counted me in that because I heard my name, but I didn't know which way you put me.
No, we didn't see your digital hand up. That's all.
Okay.
So we'll add that as number 7. We have Miss Council Member Drucker is also a no.
May I have a motion to extend the meeting?
So move.
Moved by moved by Ms. Pastel, seconded by.
Second.
I'm sorry, Ms. Donaldson, to extend the meeting until we finish. How's that?
Sounds good.
I mean, y'all didn't finish it. Okay, all in favor, would you please raise your hand? Oppose? We're gonna say that passed. All right. Staff, I think that there have been some questions raised. I'm sorry, I didn't put my hand down. I think we've had some questions raised about some of the different things. And to the committee members, I think those of us who've been on this committee long enough know that if there are questions that when we need additional information, we've always had a staff that is very, very accommodating, and they are more than happy to give us all the information we need in order to be prepared for that all important community input area, and also to make recommendations to the superintendent. Please do not think this is the end of the process. There is no telling what we will end up actually recommending to the superintendent to move forward to the board. With that, I'm at your disposal. What do you want to do?
Madam Chair, I don't think we should move forward because I really would like to know. When I said those numbers again, I was getting cut off. When I said I want to know what is those numbers for 309 for these SACs that we're really having an issue with, that the members of the community came before us. What is the numbers with respect to the grades? How many, because for example, SAC 377 or 409, SAC 409 might have predominantly, or let's go with 335. Let's say that's 100 kids. Out of those 100 kids, you might have 25 that's in the K to 3, and 75 that's from 4th to 5th grade. So I kind of want to know from those numbers that we're given that they can save from 4th and 5th graders. We have the numbers of those individuals that's in that SEC, but I would like to know what is the 4th and 5th grade numbers to see if it makes sense moving those kids or if they're able to stay at their respective schools that they're at. So for example, for 30B, 308B, if there is, I don't remember the number because I'm switching between 2 screens. If there is 20 kids and 15 of them are in 4th grade, well, we're not really making a solid move there because those parents can choose to keep their kids at Calusa. So I would kind of like to know those 4th and 5th grade numbers to make better sense of what we're really moving and what we could move, if that makes sense.
Let's try this. First of all, let's move into a committee of the whole, because that apparently is where we are right now. clearly there are questions that we have that are on the table. And probably numbers are the main thing. But let's first of all agree to the fact that we are here because of numbers. And numbers do matter, folks, because an education for a child in a crowded school is difficult. Okay, staff is only coming to us with this proposal because there are schools in need. Some of them have too much and some of them do not have enough. But clearly there's a need to do some balancing in this. The new school is not being poofed out of the air just because, see, Carla, here it is. The school is not being built because there is no need. There is definitely a need. Now, as a committee, we have the responsibility to ensure that to the best of our ability, we are putting forth a recommendation to the superintendent that says, balance it in this way. And this will be the fairest way for the community. This is the best we can do. But if you're saying there are other numbers that we need, there are some things that we need, all we need to do is be clear. We're saying we need to have staff come back with numbers on the map. That's fine. Jason, that's not a problem, right? Because you've done it before.
Yeah, we can always provide figures. I just like to add, the school, the projections include the K-5, so includes the those fourth. But as for the grade by grade breakdowns, yeah, those we don't typically provide as part of a study, though we can provide it. But the projections include the K-5, fourth and siblings. We parsed out those fourth graders and their siblings, placed them back at their current schools, assumed that most would remain, and that was part of the overall projection number.
And I think that's where we're asking for certain, as a committee, Madam Chair, we're asking for certain things from staff. That's what I am asking for, because if we're saying we're relieving Calusa and, those students are in fourth and fifth grade, what relief are we giving to them if those parents choose to keep their kids there? It's not going to be fair to 05C because we do also need to put bodies in that school. So respectively, if we don't know what fourth and fifth graders, what that look like for these respective purple with line sacks, it's kind of a mute point of who's going to let their kids go to 05C. If I'm a fourth grade parent or fifth grade parent, and half of my communities have fourth and fifth graders, and we have also kindergartners, 05C should have those kindergartners, right? But as a parent, you know what? I have the choice that my child is not going to 05C because I have another child that's in fourth grade. Then there's no bodies in 05C. That's one or two. For me, I have 4 kids. 3 of my kids are under fourth grade. One child is in fourth grade. I can choose that those 3 kids will not go to 05C because I have 1 fourth grader, because that's the rule you guys put. So we should know those numbers. We should know those fourth and fifth grade numbers because that's the choice we give those families. And it will give us a better outlook of who is truly moving over to 05C or whatever other schools that are, the SACs. I think that's something, I don't think that's a weird ask. I think that's a valid ask to truly get an understanding of what families could possibly choose to stay at Calusa.
Jason, with all respect to Charmaine's question, you indicated just a moment ago that those kinds of figures are already baked into the numbers you've got. Is that right?
Yes, and as you can see in the projection, that's a big reason why 05C is at 77% the first year, because we're assuming the majority of those fourth graders we give options to remain will remain. And that's historically what's occurred. And we looked at historically opening, prior elementary schools, what those enrolling fifth graders were, and made assumptions based on that. And applied that to 05C. But that's the primary reason why 05C is opening with, if it was opening as a K-5, this figure would be much higher. I mean, you'd probably be, closer to that range, but in the 80s, high 80s. But the big reason is they're 77% is because we're assuming, granted, parents in the end will make those decisions. But that's why they're low, because we're assuming most of those fourth graders will opt to remain at their current SY 21-22 schools.
Then that
Oh.
answered my question, Jason. That answers the point that I was making. If this is the numbers based on that, that actually answers the question. I was looking, that's what I was asking actually, in essence was, is this the same number? If not, I would like to see that number. So if you're saying this is the number, then that answers my question.
Yes, that number includes the Colusa, Addison, all these schools assume the vast majority of those fourth graders and their current K through 3 siblings choose to remain at their current SY 20. If they're attending either of any of these schools, that they choose to remain. And these numbers assume that they do, most do.
Now to follow up on that, Jason, and I'll shut up for the rest of the evening. If they don't assume that they will stay at those positions and you keep that K to 5, you're saying 92%. Can we get the 5-year projection that we have gotten back in the past with both numbers? Because we'll be visiting this school 05C pretty soon if we don't take a look, if we don't keep an eye on that. If we assume that 77% and our assumption is not correct and we're getting closer to the 92% right, 92% number in the first year, we might be visiting this school in the next 2 to 3 years. We might be visiting this, especially with the development that's here in Boca Raton. I would also like to see a 5-year projection with both, whether our assumption is right or wrong. Then I'll go back with that and I'm done.
It's before you, and I appreciate if you answer that, Jason, but you've also, one of the things that has been pointed out several times this evening, and it needs to be repeated, is the new development that is coming in this area. And the reason that I say that is because if you served on this committee for any length of time, when you deal with Boca, you're going to go back to the well again. That is not a maybe, that is a definite. So it's just going to happen. The thing to do is to do the best we can with what we have at this particular time. But the question that I have, and Jason, if you're answering Charmaine and anyone else that has given some questions, what's our timeline? Principal staff is on the on the call. We have a January date already set for a follow-up meeting. We have an agenda item. We have the school looking to be opened in the fall. What's our timeline as it relates to setting boundaries?
I think we, of course, want to, we started later than typical with the revision of policy 5.012, so we can hold virtual meetings. And, for school budgets, yeah, I mean, we would provide whatever we think the initial proposal will be. That's, we provide that to the budget office typically right before the holidays or the week we get back. So there may be, it's much, as Mr. Moldovan can attest, when you know your enrollment, you can set your budget and plan for the year, where if there's a lot of moving pieces as we march on into January, February, et cetera, becomes, it can be more difficult for these schools to plan appropriately for an appropriate number of teachers to hire, et cetera. So, we definitely want to try to come up with a solid proposal to recommend to the superintendent sooner than later, so the schools can plan appropriately.
I appreciate your being delicate, Jason, but one of the other things that we also want, another step that we have in this process, Carla, I'll come to you. Another step we have in this process is community input when we go out to the community. So don't forget that is still another step. Carla.
I would just wanted to mention to Charmaine's point with the 92%. The principal nor Jason were able to, no one knows about programming at the school, which would also impact their percentage. And until we have that from Dr. Licata, that also impacts our numbers.
I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on the remarks that came from the principal. That community building, it makes a big difference. Parents and communities have a way of taking a look at where leadership is with their school structure. So it makes a big difference. Okay. Some people, and I'm gonna share this with you. I'm looking for a motion. Help me, folks.
Madam Chair, I like to motion to send this study back to committee and bring forth some of the responses and answers that members of this body have asked. Within reasonable time. I don't know what that time frame.
What specific questions remain unanswered?
She said she's looking for a motion, so I move for this study to go back to committee with I'm sorry. I'm not exactly sure what we're returning back to.
Let me help you with the motion. Since y'all need some help, let me help you. Give me a motion to move this out to community input.
Oh, there we go. I could do that. I moved to take study 05C1 out for committee input.
Second.
As a motion, okay. Motion by Charmaine, seconded by, well, that's Stephen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. To take study 05C1 out for community input. Let's see, Karen?
You're muted.
I was getting a jump on voting.
Oh.
I'm getting hangry here.
Okay, with that.
Madam Chair, I do
yes.
have a question.
Carla?
Going out to the committee, would that be, I'm assuming that would be after our January 13th meeting?
Now that is the direction that we need to maybe follow, but I don't know.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
But I also think that if we're asking for additional information, we need to be asking that as well. Just
yes,
asking
yes,
information is not, okay?
Yes, I would like some additional information for the January 13th meeting. So I would hope that going out to the community would be afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Good point. Roseanne?
Discussion on that motion. What additional information are we waiting for? I really, because it sounded to me that everything that was asked was basically satisfied.
We took it back, Roseanne. The motion was to bring this to committee input.
No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. It seems to me that we should be able to go ahead and take a vote to send it to community input unless I've missed what we're waiting for.
Well, the motion
That's the motion on the table.
Yeah.
The motion is to take study 1051C to the community for community
good.
input. That's the motion.
Okay.
There was just some discussion about some questions being answered. And Carla asked the question, would this be before or after our next meeting? So those were, and I could not answer that.
Okay.
So, but.
Question.
I also had a question for staff. What would community input look like? Is community input online virtually, or are we going to the community? I don't remember if we answered that question before.
Charmaine, I think at this point, that's to be determined.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We'll definitely keep you updated and informed, but that'll be to be determined. The format will be determined.
Okay, with that, the all in favor of this motion, would you please raise your hand? Okay.
I don't know where my screen went, but I am raising my hands.
Okay. All right, if you will lower your hand so we can get anyone that is opposed. All right, opposed to this motion, just count the Patrick and Jason, just count the ones that are opposed.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any, Patrick, are you?
I'm not seeing any.
So
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so that motion has passed. We're going to take this study out for community input. And I think we'll be enlightened tremendously when we do this. And please, the process is not over. It's not over until the fat lady sings, and I didn't sing yet. So just keep that in mind. What else do we have, please? The question was asked if we go out for community input before or after the next meeting, which is January 13th. Do we have an answer to that? Jason, you went back on mute. You were off and you went back.
I have rubbed off on Jason.
Yeah. Carly, you're bad influence.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding. Typically, couple cycles ago, we started holding the community input meetings and the ABC meetings in the same meeting. We held the community input meeting first, followed by the regular ABC meeting, is the way we've done it in the past.
Okay.
Sense.
All right. That works. Let's do it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason. So that's done. Let's check that box. Okay, anything else?
Madam Chair, would you like my list of additional information for staff and
Yes,
email
please.
or shared today?
No, give it to them as a Christmas present. Put a bow on it. Scott?
Madam Chair, just a suggestion. I don't know what time we were planning on having the January 13th meeting. I have a conflict that evening, but that's not the reason I'm asking. Starting at 6 p.m. would probably be too late. Are we planning on starting at a 4 o'clock time or something similar to tonight, given how late we've gone?
We're not usually this long. But community input, let me back up. That's right, community input, we are long. What is the 13th?
It is a Thursday.
Okay.
Sorry.
Then we need to get a feel from the committee. So what time?
It's a Wednesday.
No, it is a Thursday. Thursday, January 13th is a Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
So how is everyone's time in terms of a Thursday, early afternoon like this?
It's fine with
Anyone?
me.
Is it going to be by Zoom again?
Yeah, if it's Zoom, I'm fine with this time.
So it depends on the platform. If it's by Zoom, we're okay with 4 o'clock. If we're face to face, okay, Scott, what's your issue?
Well, I don't want to drive it. I have a mayor's conflict of the Florida League of Mayors that evening, but I would not presume to input. There's 19 people on this committee. I was really just mentioning that as a side note. I just didn't want to start at 6 or have the community meeting start at 4, run long, and then have this meeting begin at 7 because we'll probably be going quite a while. I wanted to allow for the possibility.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. School will be back in session too now. We got to think about that because we're talking about our parents. Okay, it's a community input. So the parents need to have an opportunity to give input. We can't have it unless maybe we should move it to 1 o'clock. Hey,
Madam Chair, I just
Yes.
was looking at the policy and Mayor probably answered that question, but we also, when we're thinking of those dates, our committee input sessions can be conducted in conjunction with the ABC committee meeting as well.
Yeah. Yes, but we need to make sure that our parents are able to attend. The time is appropriate for, our parents. Like I said, it's school, so they need to be able to get home, feed the kids and that kind of thing. Okay, we'll be working with it, right? Okay, we know what we're doing. We just don't know when we're doing it. So that's a big step. Anything else?
I have a question about the format of the community input and how might it be different than just because I'm newish on this than what we did tonight.
Go ahead.
How is the format of the community input going to be different than it was tonight?
The community members generally, it's going to be interesting if it's virtual, but they do fill out a card. It's just that they're not timed. Now we don't do any repetition until everyone that wants to speak is allowed to speak, because some people will speak 2 and 3 and 4 times. So that's the issue. It's not a question of a point being made several different times. The main thing is the time they're able to speak. We try to encourage them to, make their point and move on, but we don't have a clock on them.
Madam Chair, I do want to point out what the policy, states the community input session will constitute the public comment portion of the meeting, will commence first and will not exceed 1 hour, subject to the following: the opportunity to be heard on a proposed study. So,
well, that's right.
We can provide time, you have the opportunity, if need be, we can provide, 3-minute limit or whatnot. So it's an option.
I would hate to put Madam Chair in a position, since she did share at to the speakers earlier that they could always come back to the community meeting and they had unlimited time. So I would hate for us to go back on what we've already told them.
I think we've been I believe we've been very successful within community input, because we've treated everyone in a way that we demonstrated we were interested in their input and in what they were saying. I think if we continue with that respectful demeanor, I believe we will continue to have success with this process. Because it is a delicate situation. It's very emotional. We're talking about families. So, and I can understand the red writing in the policy of the board, but we still have to deal with this on a human basis, and we will.
Kathy's hand's been up for a while.
I'm sorry?
Kathy's hand.
Oh, Kathy, I'm sorry. Thank you, Charlene.
No, that's okay. I'm just trying to understand what new, if any, additional information will go out to the community between now and then. And if there's really nothing new, what would we expect in terms of any different feedback than we got tonight? And I'm totally interested in community input, but I just wouldn't want it to necessarily be a repeat of all the same comments that we've already heard. If there's nothing different that we're putting out there.
Sometimes we have additional people that come to speak, because so many times when we have the boundary committee meeting, we have a limited, even though it's a very vocal and verbal group, it's not necessarily a group that is as representative of the community. And so oftentimes we do get a more expansive representation of the community when we go out to community input.
Okay, that would be great to hear from some of the folks in other areas, I think. Thank you.
That's it for me. Anyone else?
I just want to, I think, Jason, you pointed it out before, and just want to reiterate to the community, through Madam Chair and the committee members. I know sometimes we're like, I shared with Jason how I have been approached a couple of times about this study and what we will be discussing. I just want to remind the community that we're an advisory, and at the same time, we're subjected by sunshine laws. We're also subjected by what's written in policy. We as committee members cannot speak on behalf of the ABC committee without a vote. So just keep that in mind when you're approaching us and sending us individual emails. There is a process, and be respectful of that process. And that's all I wanted to share publicly.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought I saw Scott. Thought I saw your hand.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, then we do
Madam Chair,
have
I'd
a
make a
couple
motion
of.
to adjourn. Are we done?
Okay, well, I was going to find out if the school board members that are on want to make any comment.
This is Mr. Barbieri, and I have no comment other than thank you all for your hard work. It's reminded me of a school board meeting, but at least you were nice to each other, which is great. So thank you.
And this is Karen, and I'm just a fly on the wall. So anyway, yes, I was just listening, and thank you all so much. The one thing I must commend all of you, you're just so respectful and so welcoming to the people that speak. So I just want to thank you for what you do, because this is the most difficult committee that anyone serves on, and we're very blessed to have you. So happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. Okay, who was that? Stephen making a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Motion to adjourn.
Go right ahead. Frankie's taking your job. Privileged motion. We are adjourned. Thank you so much. Y'all have a very happy holiday.
Happy holidays, everybody.
And everyone from staff, thank you so much. You really have made this wonderful. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Here.
Welcome. And thank you all for volunteering your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
See you next year.
Yes, that's right. Next year. Isn't that something? Okay. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.